This is the D6 generation with your hosts, Craig Gallant.
No, cut that. Keep that. Someday it's going to be worth something.
Russ Wakelin.
You put me in an ATST with frickin' Wookiees attacking me and whatnot?
Now you're talking. And Lindsey Rode in the third chair.
Yeah, and then I flip that sucker right into the sun.
With contributions from Total Fangirl.
Vampires do not sparkle.
And our loyal listeners.
Crazy? That's like 400 hours of gamer nonsense.
Welcome to another edition of Rapid Fire, the roundtable discussion of all things gaming. Coming at the speed of an expert lumberjack's axe as he carves an intricate Celtic knotwork design into a beautiful Zeracoat box. Ooh. This edition is brought to you by all of our fine friends over at Patreon who help us keep the lights on. And this rounds out the alphabetical order. Vincent, Volker, Jack Jacobson, W, David McKenzie, and Woder Perot. I do it wrong every time. Tonight, our panelists are, as always, Russ Steamed Wenge Wakelin, and a very special guest, Lindsey Black Palmyra Rode, the Valkyrie of operations for the Viking Lumberjacks of Dogmite Games. Let's begin. Issue number 1. Lumberjacks are workers in the logging industry who perform the initial harvesting and transport of trees for ultimate processing into forest products. The term usually refers to a bygone era like the Vikings, when hand tools were used in harvesting trees. Question. The division of labor in a lumber camp led to several specialized jobs on logging crews, such as whistlepunk, chaser, and high climber. What was the whistlepunk's primary responsibility? Yarder Russ.
To notify folks when the flapjacks were ready.
Logger Lindsey.
To notify folks when the beer was ready.
Ooh.
Oh, so she knows the lumberjack. Sadly, by the letter of the rules, that is wrong. It is safety. Wait, do Viking lumberjacks care about safety? I don't know. Issue number 2. No matter how well-designed or appointed a game might be, there are always gamers looking for the next great way to bling it out. Whether it's fancy dice, cool tokens, or beautiful rare wood boxes, some gamers will go to any lengths to beautify their favorite games. Question. What is a reasonable amount of money, as presented as a percentage of the original game's price, to spend on blinging out one single really good game? Reduced rate Russ.
175%.
Low cost Lindsey.
There is no limit.
That is correct.
Woo!
Russ is wrong. It is infinity. It's all about the bling, baby. I have cases with nothing in them. I have tokens and figurines that go with nothing. The game means nothing if the bling is strong. Issue number 3. Wonder Woman is a fictional superhero appearing in American comic books published by DC Comics. The character is a founding member of the Justice League, demigoddess, and ambassador at large of the Amazonian people. Question. The creator of Wonder Woman was the writer William Moulton Marston. What was Mr. Marston's occupation before he became a writer of comics? Red Panzer Russ.
Accountant.
Max Lord Lindsey.
A line cook?
Sadly, no, that makes you both wrong. I would have accepted psychologist, inventor, or self-help author. Also, apparently, a bigamist. Sort of. Kinda. Fascinating story. Check it out. Issue number 4. Whenever you first embark upon a new business venture, one of the most important decisions is what to name your endeavor. Would Apple be as successful if it was called Pear? What about Macro Hard? Okay, forget that one. Anyway, what you call your business can be very important indeed. Question. What do you think Dogmite Games really means in a succinct manner? Rubric Russ.
Chest as strong as...
Out of time. Appellation Lindsey.
There are no rules. It's Dogmite. There are never any rules.
That is probably a truism, but doesn't translate into what it means. So wrong. I think it means a dog might really like fancy carved wood. A dog might really like certain games. A dog might really like Viking Lumberjacks. In fact, the right dog might like anything. And so, dog might.
That's deep.
And I'm sticking with that, which makes you both wrong. That's it for now. Thanks for listening, and good night.
This episode of the D6 generation is brought to you by Lone Wolf Development. Take your game to the next level.
And by Geek Nation Tours. Rise up and join the Geek Nation, touring the world at geeknationtours.com.
And by Audible. Try the service, get a free book, and support the show. all by visiting audibletrial.com/D6G. Hello!
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, welcome to episode 218, Craig.
I don't know why, Russ, but that number just sounds legit to me.
I can't believe you guys can even count that high.
I know, and if you add them all together,
now.
you get 11 of the D6
Right off
generation.
the bat? Seriously, with the math jokes?
It's awesome. It's right. So, welcome to the D6 generation. I'm Russ Wakeland.
I'm Craig Gallant.
And I'm your neighborhood-friendly Lindsey Rode.
Hey, Lindsay, welcome to the show.
Hey, guys. Thanks so much for having me on.
This is awesome. So we're super excited to have Lindsay here. Lindsay, what exactly is your title over there at Dogmite Games?
My title is Valkyrie of Operations, and more recently, Game Director.
Game Director and
Now, the
Valkyrie.
interesting thing about that, Russ,
Yeah.
is that this is the first time in the history of the show
Yes.
that a person's actual job title was used in rapid fire
Oh, is it?
with no elaboration whatsoever.
Right.
No.
Yes, exactly. That's
What more? It's like gilding the lily, Russ. What more could I do to Valkyrie of Operations?
You really can't. When you got a job
is.
title that cool, that's your official, that's on your business card. Isn't
Yeah, it's on my business card, and when my parents ask me what I do for a living, I tell them I do that.
it? That is awesome. That is awesome. Now,
Are they satisfied with that?
They're slightly confused, but proud nonetheless.
Oh,
So
good.
so then the next logical question when you're at that obligatory, grown-up style dinner party and someone asks you what you do and you give them your title, they would say, well, what is a typical, what does the Valkyrie of Operations actually do? First of all, do you find yourself correcting people on the proper way to pronounce Valkyrie or Valkyrie?
No, so far everyone's gotten it right. So
Okay.
good job, TV and movies.
Exactly, right.
Getting everyone on the same page with that.
So what is the succinct elevator pitch of your role there at Dogmite?
Well, I like to consider Valkyrie of Operations the last line of defense. I take all the chaos that is inherent in not only a woodworking shop, but also a game design office, and make sure that it all goes to the right places and no one's, cutting off their fingers, everyone's following the safety guidelines, and that everything's getting shipped out to the right people, and that everyone's on track, and all of our stuff hits Kickstarter on time.
See, that is a really
little
unique
bit of
skill
everything.
set.
Also, cons. Cons are a huge part of my job.
That's an amazing skill set, Lindsay, because I got to think there's a lot of people out there that are good at helping with game design. And there's a lot of people out there good at helping with woodworking, but there's not that many folks that can manage woodworking and game design all at the same time. I think that is pretty
Probably
impressive.
not. I have a very diverse background.
A broad portfolio of skills. So we're going to talk more with Lindsay. We're going to jump in with Lindsay later here, really get into how she got into the industry, what kind of background do you need to have to become a safety expert at woodworking and a game designer extraordinaire. So we're going to get into that. And then of course, what happens over there at Dogmite Games as well. And then later we're going to talk about, because Dogmite Games is really all about the bling, we're going to talk a little later about what we look for as gamers ourselves in blinging out our games. Right, Craig?
Yes, indeed, Russ.
What
are we going to do? What do we do and why do we do it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Why spend?
What's wrong with us, essentially?
Well, we all know why we do it. So, but first, before we get to all that, we have a few little things to get out of the way here. First of all, we have some announcements. So don't forget, if you're going to Gen Con, which is literally a couple weeks away by the time you hear this episode, Craig and I will be there. And on a Thursday evening at 8 o'clock, come by the D6 Generation Play by Mob, say hi to us, participate in a live recording of the show, be a part of the show. We'd love to see you there. And there will be lots of prizes there as well, so please say hi. And then also, Craig, we are just wrapping up a contest for your audiobook.
Yes.
So do you remember what
Exciting.
the parameters are of that contest, sir?
You are to tweet us a name and description of a new alien race.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to tweet at the D6 Generation.
At the D6 Generation, also at Ray
also
Greenlee,
at Ray Greenlee VO
with hashtag D6G Pick Me.
and hashtag Legacy of Shadow.
Yes.
So it's going to be a very succinct, very short alien race in description.
Unless you're really crafty. Some of our listeners are very crafty, Craig. Did you see the first crafty one?
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
So we had a crafty entry where you have all those tags there. So he took a picture of his entry, which then gave him a lot more words. So it's pretty clever. That was a pretty clever
very
entry.
clever. Yes. And on offer, Russ, is what?
Well, you're going to win. Ray has agreed to give away 2 copies. Five audio copies of the audiobook, Legacy of Shadow
Who
by
are you, King Arthur?
one Craig Gallant. Yeah.
Lindsay made the right joke about math. She just aimed it at the wrong person.
Right. 5-star. So
5, sir. 5.
Hey, I want to
Sorry,
make it
5.
clear that joke was aimed at everyone in the room,
Oh,
nice. Thank you.
including myself.
Right. It's all
I'm
good.
bad at math. I'm not bad at counting.
Math
But
is hard.
anyway, yes.
Math-
So Russ, what is it? 5 what?
5 audio copies of the book Legacy of Shadow by Craig Gallant, narrated by Ray Greenlee. So this will be, these entries need to be tweeted at us, literally, by the 15th of August. So get those in, and we'll select some winners, and Ray will get you out those codes. So that'll be fun.
Ooh, fun.
All right, so all that's now taken care of. Oh, by the way, Craig, do you remember, actually, we ran into Lindsay not too long ago at Dunkin' Donuts. Lindsay, do you remember this little event?
Oh, the
Yeah.
time-space continuum is so confusing.
It is,
around
because,
that-
you know,
that
we
particular branch of Dunkin' Donuts.
We fast forward into the future sometimes and record things later. But when we ran into Lindsay at Dunkin' Donuts, Lindsay, do you remember what we discussed while we were there?
We discussed a very special movie that we had all seen recently. Something that's making quite a splash recently, I hear.
Yes. Do you remember the name of the film?
It was, let me see. I was pretty hopped up on coffee. Believe it was Wonder Woman, if I remember correctly.
That's what I remember.
Spoilerific
Yes.
discussion of Wonder
Yes.
Woman.
It is. It's full. There's no whole bars in this episode.
No. So if you were interested,
We actually we took the script and read it out loud. We did
Yeah.
we did a
did.
dramatic reading.
dramatic
of Wonder
reading
Woman.
of Wonder Woman.
While standing on the tables.
Yes.
That's true.
So, Craig, if someone wants to listen to that or other Lost Chapters, what should they do?
Well, Russ, they should. There's 2 avenues really to Nirvana for them. One would be to go to the d6generation.com, find the Patreon logo, click on, or actually our little Patreon logo version, click on it, and it will bring them to Patreon, to our specific page that'll explain everything that's going on. Basically, it's a little tip jar. If you like what we do, if you appreciate what we do, and you'd like us to continue, you kick a little tip into the tip jar. And if you are tipping us $2 or more per episode, the entire library of Lost Chapters is unlocked for you immediately in a Netflix-like super technological fashion.
Yes, you can binge listen if you're so inclined. For example.
You could do that if you'd like.
You could do
there's
that.
Weeks of listening pleasure there.
I don't know that I recommend that
There's
course of
a
action.
treasure trove awaiting you.
There is.
Indeed.
It's like
you
a
could
little-
also just go to patreon.com and just search for the D6 Generation for the same page.
Exactly. It's like a little finely carved wooden box of awesome. So great.
Of awesome.
So thank you. So Craig, what's the time now for, sir?
Oh, whenever you say that, it's time for achievements in gaming.
It is indeed. And of course, achievements brought to us by all of our fine friends over at Patreon. And now the part of the show where we talk about games we've been playing lately. And if you hear this noise, wait, this
You
noise.
know what I haven't done in a while? I haven't done this in a while. What have you been playing lately?
Yeah.
Boom,
And there's a reason for that.
oh, yeah.
All right. So, Lindsay, guests first. What games have you been playing lately?
I've been playing a ton of Guild Ball lately.
Oh, excellent.
Oh, nice choice.
Now, what's your team of choice in Guild Ball?
So my team in choice is the Brewers. I've had them since the beginning.
Yep.
I have only ever played the Brewers, but recently I struck out and finally got a second team, which are the Fishermen. So
Oh.
I'm super pumped about that.
But you're crossing your sports metaphors, so I'm very confusing.
She meant she branched
Did I-
out, not struck out.
She branched
she-
out, not struck out.
Yes. No. Come on. So
No.
Or, no. She meant struck out, like you strike out into another,
Yeah.
yes.
just
yes.
not
Just
as a
keep talking.
sports
You guys make
metaphor.
me sound way more clever than I am, so just keep talking.
So
Okay.
So Lindsay, now the Fishermen play very differently than the Brewers. So how are you enjoying that really dramatic change in play style?
It is really dramatic. I really like it. I haven't won with the Fishermen yet. And they're supposed to be
tough.
a really powerful team, so I assume it's me. But I always assume that in games. But yeah, there's just I'm so used to beating people up that it's really hard not to just like wail on everyone. And I play a lot of hunters. My friends play a lot of hunters, so
Yeah.
Cena has just been like taking my Fishermen out.
No.
But they're super fast. I just need to learn how to use their speed, essentially.
Yeah, they're more of a scoring team, right? They're not a punishing team. They're more of a scoring team, right?
Yeah, I ran my fisherman up and tried to punch Cena, which is, for those who don't play Guild Ball, Cena is this giant bear that put a jersey on, like some drunk person put a jersey on a bear and just let it run across the field. And I tried to take the smallest little fisherman, like imagine the skinniest man ever, with like a peg leg, and then punch that bear in the face, and the bear just ate me in one bite, and it was
now
it was a little rough.
Now, Lindsay, I have to call you out on this. So even if you don't know the mechanics of the new models you're playing, if you just look at the the sort of the mass ratio of the guy versus the bear as sculpted, even without any knowledge of mechanics, what kind of made you feel like he could take the bear?
He was taunting me. He was mocking my player.
So smack talk.
Listen, it may not have been the most strategical option, but it was certainly the most thematic option, because I know that fisherman couldn't take anymore. He had a family watching.
Sure. Okay, fair enough. So the bear ate a young fisherman for dinner is what happened there.
Yes. It wasn't pretty.
Nice.
All right. And that's cowed the rest of them.
Yeah. Perhaps.
Or bared them.
No.
Wow.
No love there.
Lindsay, I appreciate your candid response.
I'm so sorry. I feel like really sassy today.
That's awesome. So playing a lot of Guild Ball. Do you play? You guys have a pretty regular, vital, pretty, vibrant league over there.
Yeah, the Dogmite team is super into Guild Ball. So we have Guild Ball mats set up actually in our office, like in our lobby where you would come to visit us. And there's Guild Ball mats set up on a table to the side, and we play a lot of afternoons.
Awesome.
Which is really fun. Yeah. And everyone has, because we work with wood, so like everyone has really like tricked out goal posts.
Oh, you're right.
Cool.
Which has really been fun.
Yep. I thought you were going to say like custom figure cases with little movement trays and everything.
We have all this too, but we're mostly we mostly just care about our goalposts. We just try to outdo each other on goalposts.
Sure, that's awesome. Great. What? Any other games you're playing?
Let's see. I just played Arena Rex for the first time.
Oh, what'd you think? Craig's a big fan of that game.
Yeah, it was really cool. It was so different after playing Guild Ball so much. Especially like I play Guild Ball and Warhammer mostly. But it was great. It was like a pretzel and beer kind of game. There's just like not a lot of rules. It was over really fast. I had a really good time. I was like shoving people into pillars constantly and trying to throw them into pits. So like I had a great time, and really like at first impression, that's all I care about when playing a game.
Well, that's all good.
How did I feel at the end of it?
Yeah, and the models are crazy good, right? I mean, the models.
The models are ridiculous.
Yeah.
The funny thing about the game is that everything about it looks like it should be some deep and strategic game and campaign, blah blah blah, and then it's not. It's like this super fast, furious, fun, bloody brawl.
Excellent.
Yeah, it's almost like boxing, the miniature game. It's really strange.
Boxing. That's I've not heard that analogy for that game, but I can see it. I can see it. Excellent. Anything else in your playlist recently? Last 2 or 3 weeks?
Let's see. We've been playing Onitama by Days of Wonder, I believe, which is a really cool kind of chess-like game where you have these samurais and monks, and they can only move in certain ways. But every time that you use a move, like you would use like crane, right? Like a martial arts move, and it would move your figure a certain way. But then you have to give that crane card to your opponent, who can use crane against you immediately if he wants. So you're constantly playing this game where you want to use these incredible moves, but as soon as you do, you know that they're going to be used against you.
That's awesome. So you got to think about what you're going to do, but also you want to do a move that actually is not really leverageable by your opponent, right? That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's really cool. It came out last year. I think it's just been kind of a sleeper hit because I don't hear too many people talk about it. It's one of the Dice Tower essentials.
Yeah.
But man, we've just really been competitive with it lately, like really competitive with Onitama lately.
Nice. Now, is it a fast-playing game? Is it the kind of game you can fit in at lunchtime or something?
Yeah, exactly. Okay, it's like a lunch game. Yeah. It's really, really quick.
Awesome. I got to check that one out. I like those kind of. So it's an abstract, pretty much, right? I mean, it's got cool little pieces and things, basically. Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's definitely an abstract. Kind of just like it's very similar to chess. If chess was a lot easier to understand, in my opinion.
I got to check that one out. Awesome. Anything else on the list? There's one more.
There's I can't say too much about this game.
Uh-oh. Is this the new hotness?
But it's not. This is pretty new hotness. I had a mysterious package from something called the Raxon Corporation dropped off at my house recently. Ooh. And it said that I was picked to be a evacuation center and like a recruitment training center against the zombie apocalypse. And it came in just an unlabeled box that just said Raxon, and inside there was a game. And have you guys heard about this at all? Does this sound familiar at all?
No.
I believe a friend of mine's family did. Is it a style of game where you get a box and then you have to start looking and you have to go online and look at and call phone numbers and stuff to start putting it all together?
No, this is so I don't want to like ruin it for other people. So for people out there, because this is so cool. There's a game that comes to you, and it's in a black box. It's 100% complete board game in and of itself. But when you get it, you get 3 codes, and you can recruit 3 more members who can get the game, and then they give a person 3 codes. And it's the only way to get this brand new board game.
Oh, wow. So it's like a viral marketing thing. That's pretty cool.
It's incredible. And it's called Raxon. For those of you who want to research, just look up Raxon board game. And you'll be able to see what very, very popular world this board game is in.
Oh.
Okay.
So that's all I'll tell you guys for now. It's so cool. Look it up. It's amazing.
Oh, yes.
But it's only cool if you like fully buy into this mysterious theme and like what they're doing with it. So that's why I'm not going to say anymore.
That's very cool. Now I'll have to check that out. We don't want to spoil it for anybody, but that looks awesome. Nice. Wow.
What's it called again?
It's called Raxon.
Raxxon.
Yes. And it's from a very popular game company.
You will recognize stuff if you Google this, you're going to it's kind of a spoiler in and of itself doing that, right? You're going to get a lot more.
Okay. So, yeah. If you don't want it spoiled, don't do that.
Yeah. Right. Cool. Well, Lindsay, that's some awesome stuff right there. You've been very busy, and that's awesome.
What guys?
That's awesome. Craig, what about yourself, sir? What have you been playing lately?
Well, let's see. Got another 40K game in. This time it was Eldar versus Imperial Guard.
Yeah, how'd that go for you?
Excuse me, Astra Militarum. It's still playing exactly as you would have expected if you're one of us old guard that hasn't played in about 7 years or so.
Right.
The Eldar are very specialized. Their units are very powerful in the right matchups, but if you get the wrong matchups, they're all but helpless. They're kind of like there's all their troops are specialists. So, in the army, the Eldar fielded, you could kind of tell it was designed like, I'm going to take on a Space Marine army maybe. And the Guard army was like, he's expecting a Space Marine army. So lots and lots and lots of Guard, versus a very small elite group of Eldar that really just could not face the firepower. So it was brutal. It was a fast and brutal game. Then Colt Express. We had some friends over. We played Colt Express, and that is always a fun game.
That is a great game.
And,
now, again,
I love that game.
Are you playing with the horses, Craig? Because if you're not playing with the horses, you're doing something wrong.
I always play with the horses. I don't always play with the stagecoach. It depends. Like a learning game, I won't put the stagecoach in there usually. But the horses are so cool, and they change up the beginning of the game so much that I always explain them and put them in there.
Sure.
Yeah.
Excellent. That is
and then Vikings on Board, another cool game.
Yeah, you still getting some good playtime with that? That was a nice discovery.
And it was funny because that was this was Karen's first time not playing 2-player, and she was floored by how different it was.
In a good way?
Like, but she was like, what do you mean I only get 2 guys to place?
Yep. That's so cool. I haven't tried that one yet, and I really want to.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
It's got great components too.
It's a fast, fun game with great components.
Yeah.
Yep. What about you, Russ?
Let's see. Well, not as much as I'd hoped. I've been doing a lot of travel for work, which is, not as fun. But the D&D 5e campaign that I've been playing with my family, my daughters, my niece and nephew, and my brother, is still ongoing. We finally made it to the very end of Horde of the Dragon Queen. And so now we are transitioning. We are literally in the sort of limbo state between Horde of the Dragon Queen and Rise of Tiamat. So which is the next giant hardcover adventure. And I've injected some of my own content in there to sort of bridge the gap. And so that's been a lot of fun. So last session, we literally spent 3 hours looting a dragon lair after they had slain the dragon. So it's kind of, like that class. And you kind of, when your party finally kills a dragon, you really got to just give them, a few hours to wallow in the giant pile of gold. You kind of got to make that happen to really make it feel worth it.
3 hours is a long time to wallow in gold.
It is. Well, there were complications.
You're very generous.
Well, this is a little bit of a spoiler, but so if you don't want to have anything spoiled, but it's kind of not a big spoiler because it is the cover of the book. So the big dragon you fight at the end is a white dragon inside a giant ice cave, right? And and there are complications going on. So whilst they have slain this dragon, there are other powers around and nearby the dragon lair. And meanwhile, to make things fun and interesting, the entire dragon horde, which is sitting there glittering gold, gems, literally like millions of coins, and treasure. And you can see the magic items stuck in there, all under a layer of about 3 inches of ice. Right. And so, they're trying to figure out ways they can get through the ice, ways they can evaluate the best stuff to take and get it out of there, whilst the other powers that just heard this giant battle between heroes and fireballs and dragon, can get it in and out of there before they show up and decide what's going on. Oh, that giant guardian of the treasure is dead. Maybe some of that loot's around for us to take. So it was a complex looting. It wasn't one of those simple, find as many bags as you can to haul out the gold situations. But it was a lot of fun. They had a good time with that. And now we're ready to go to the next big stage. So that was my D&D. Cool. Then also, last Tuesday, a friend of ours, Tim Colonna, was there, and he got me back into Hero Realms, which is a fast and fun little card game. Lindsay, you played Hero Realms?
No, I don't think I've even heard of that one.
So it's by the guys who made Star Realms. So if you're familiar with Star Realms, the card game, and this is one of those deck building games, but they're super simple. So this one, each person takes on the role of sort of like a hero, and you're basically beating each other up. And you're buying things from the central market to build your deck to beat each other up better. But the new mechanic he introduced me to is in the basic game, both players are symmetrical. So your starting decks are identical, and you're just trying to effectively buy more cards into your hand, which give you, cool companions and better gear, and you're beating each other up. In this version now, there are separate character decks. So instead of having the exact same starter deck, I could pick the wizard deck and he could pick the ranger deck, or I could pick the fighter deck and he could pick the cleric deck. They're pretty cool. They're like double-sided artwork. You can pick a male or female version of your hero, and it gives a little more special abilities to each person and just kind of adds a little flavor. And they did a good job of making it feel like ranger versus wizard. So that was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed Hero Realms. If you're looking for a fast and fun little 2-player card game that you can get done in like literally 15 minutes, great game and fantastic artwork too. So really enjoyed it.
Oh yeah, I'll have to get that for like lunch games.
Oh, it's a great lunch.
Sounds amazing.
It's a perfect lunch game or filler game. Like when I'm at the game store waiting for my miniature gaming opponent to show up, we'll play this quite a bit. So good stuff. So that's regular games. What about modeling? What about building any cool stuff? Building, painting, assembling. Lindsay, you been working on any new? Have you been painting up your new fisherman?
I have not yet. I gathered I was on vacation recently, or I guess still am technically, and I got a bunch of seashells. So I'm really pumped to use those seashells as the base for the fisherman. I'm gonna have them standing up on the seashell.
Oh, on actual seashells? Cool. So you're gonna glue the guys?
Yeah.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, like I found really cool like snail looking ones.
Oh, that's awesome.
I'm gonna have they have like this really weird otter in the fisherman. It's got like leather straps and stuff.
Oh yeah, right.
And I'm
right.
gonna have him with like the classic seashell behind him, like you would see in like old 1950s musicals.
Yep.
Where like the clamshell opens up, and I'm gonna do that with the otter in the middle.
Oh, I'd forgotten.
So I'm really pumped up about that.
Craig, isn't the fisherman's otter like the most OP character now? Didn't that come out at SteamCon when we were there? I feel like that was a thing. Wasn't there a big discussion about the otter?
I was doing some reading about it, but it sounds like a lot of the fishermen people are saying that about, not just the otter. Yeah.
I thought people were like the otter's like the mascot to own, man. He's like cool, but if you can get him, so I figure you get him in like in the little the shell pose there, like what is it, Van Gogh's thing or whatever it is with the little. I'm probably misquoting my classical art. Craig, you should help me out with this.
Sorry.
Anyway, but that's cool. So you've assembled all those guys. Any other painting you're doing or anything?
Yeah, I really like painting like busts for competitions.
Oh, very cool. Yeah.
So I just finished this guy is really cool. He looks like he has a plague, and then I always build like a really nice wooden plinth for him and stuff. So I have this really cool wood. It's called Purple Heart, and it looks purple, but like I made it kind of like sickly and everything, and I put the plague bust in it, and it looks fantastic. I'm going to try to enter it in maybe the Gen Con competition if I can.
That's awesome. Now, do you tweet these pictures out so people can check them out, or are you very private with your
probably
miniature?
should. I don't do it for the competition ones, just because sometimes you can get in trouble if you show them before.
Oh yeah, right.
You enter them, it doesn't count anymore or something. But I don't know if they really watch it that carefully. I don't know if I'm popular enough that that I would ever have a chance of winning, that anyone would care that I posted a picture of it before it went up for competition.
Yeah. Well, then maybe after competition, because I'd love to see it. That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Very
cool. I love them. Like
now,
I said, I don't know if I'm any good, but it's really relaxing after like a hard day.
Which painting events do you enter every year? Do you have a couple you always enter every year, and so you kind of plan your painting year around certain ones or anything?
Yeah, well, there's always like the local ones. Mm-hmm. In Michigan, like all the local game shops and stuff, which are really fun. And then I always try to do the Gen Con one. They have like a little one.
Yep.
That's really fun. And then I really want to this year get into the one at the CMON convention.
Oh, okay, yeah. Very cool.
I know you have to qualify to get into the Crystal Brush, but like one of the qualifiers for that, and I believe there might be one at Origins, I really want to enter.
Yeah, there's one at Adepticon too. There's a Crystal Brush there also.
Oh yeah, I guess I am near Adepticon now. I can finally go to Adepticon.
There you go.
See?
That's the one. Adepticon always got a big prize too. Like, I mean, it's hardcore competition there, but it's just be fun to get in there.
Yeah, that'd be really cool. That's the one con I've never been to.
Oh, Adepticon. Oh, it's as great. A miniature gamer, Lindsay, I cannot recommend Adepticon highly enough. It's our absolutely
one for miniature.
I think it's Craig and we're big Gen Con fans too, but I think Adepticon as a miniature gamer is my favorite convention because it's not too big. It's everybody there's a miniature gamer that's super passionate about miniature gaming. It doesn't matter what game system it is, and it's game system agnostic, right? They're not all GW or all Privateer or all weird. It's like if it's a miniature game that's ever been made, someone's there running a miniature, old stuff, new stuff. It's fantastic and amazing painting competition there. Just some of the people from all over the world come with their stuff, so you really see stuff at levels that are like very unusual. So I would definitely, if you're near Adepticon, I think you'd really enjoy it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'll see. Do they have a dealer hall?
Oh yes.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Then I can probably convince a certain team.
Yes, I thought might should be there. Dog might should
then it's
be
work.
There.
You don't even have to pay.
And then I don't have to pay for the hotel, which is perfect.
All the miniature game companies are there. A lot of them announce big things there. I mean, it's a thing. You should,
every year, more and more of the designers they should get a chance to meet the designers or play their games with them. That's all kinds of really cool stuff.
And if you're into airbrushing, like the airbrushing guys are all there doing classes. I mean, it's
Oh yeah.
It's pretty.
My heroes are Massive Voodoo, so I heard that they go sometimes. That'd be amazing to get to go to one of their classes.
Yeah, I would. I think you'd really like that. Very cool. So I didn't know you did painting competitions. That's fantastic. That's really cool.
Thanks, guys.
Great. So Craig, what have you been painting lately?
I've just been finishing up. So to summarize quickly, I finished those 2 massive 40K buildings.
Yep.
So they're all cool and detailed up. I finished my Valkyrie and my Hellhound, which I'm super excited about. The Hellhound did quite well against the Eldar.
Hellhound's great, by the way, in 8th edition. I love my Hellhound in 8th.
Oh, they're
awesome.
Great.
Oh, yeah.
The new plastic model that came out for the last edition and currently is unavailable as they sell through all their stock, getting ready to redo all the different armies, unfortunately. It's one of my favorite guard kits of all time. That the new Hellhound is phenomenal. And it's one of the first kits I've ever seen them do that make all the different variations on a single chassis, but don't do it so you don't like that. It's most of the time when GW you can buy this dreadnought, it can make these 3 different variations, but it uses a couple pieces for this piece rather than that piece, so you can't really make all 3 with magnetized very easily. This one you can because it's you don't even have to magnetize them; they're just plug and play turret pieces, which are awesome.
Oh, that's so cool.
That is cool.
Yeah, it's really
I always
cool.
try to do the magnets and it's never pretty.
No. Yeah, because you've got okay, so this kind of cannon no longer has these 2 little fiddly bits because if I do this part, it's over here. And so it's really, really cool the way they did that. I finished over 20 specialist IG infantry, including a bunch of Inquisition guys, some command models. I got myself a Primaris Psyker. And because of the nature of 40K, It's insane. Now I want to just do a bunch of Nurgle Imperium, Dark Imperium Nurgle, the second set that I got. I got to put all those together, but I got to hack them up so they look a little different than the first set that I did. Plus, I happen to get some Forge World goodies, like a big giant greater demon of Nurgle, the Forge World one, which is awesome.
Nice.
But that's not all. Then I've got to go and I've got to round out my Space Wolf, and I got to do all this before everybody locally stops playing 40K.
Right.
So the clock is ticking.
Finish. Well, no, Craig, here's the thing. You should not ever finish one of these things because we just announced earlier that when you finish, that's when the interest dies off. So as long as you don't finish,
the cosmic loophole.
Right. I think we've got to
true.
exactly, Lindsay. We got to exploit
but the loophole. It's a wormhole and it goes both ways. And the other direction is when I spend a ton of money.
You
it
bought
also
it all.
kills it.
Yes,
so,
I see.
yeah, it's like in the Honor Harrington universe, if somebody blasts an antimatter warhead right at the front of the wormhole, it like sends a vibe through the wormhole that it kind of kills the wormhole. Yeah. That's what my spending money on a game does.
Sure. That was my exact mental image. You really captured that.
Yeah,
for
I
me.
see. Look at right there. Boom. There it's gone.
Good. Okay. Excellent.
Yeah. What about you, Russ?
Well, not a lot. My daughter and I are still painting our Warmahorde stuff. So she is still working on, she's almost finished up her gargantuan. She plays Circle, and she's got the World War, the giant, I forget what the exact name of it is, but the giant stone dude, right? The big one. So she's almost done with that one, which is good because her birthday's coming, and proud geek dad, she's turning 15, and several of her birthday items include the new Storm Raptor, which I don't know if you've seen this, Craig. It's the new gargantuan for Circle. It's a giant,
I've seen it.
Bird thing. Oh, it's awesome. So she wants that, and she's a pretty good painter, so I'm looking forward to her starting on that thing. So we're trying to finish up her gargantuan. She's almost done with that. Meanwhile, I'm trying to finish up my Colossal for Signar, so that's getting there. But I have to say, I don't know if this counts as modeling or not, but I know later in the show when we're going to talk about gaming bling, I mentioned this thing, but I backed the Widow's Wood Kickstarter, and this is mostly because I am a Privateer Press fanboy, so I will admit this. But I like all my Privateer Press models. I don't mind buying the plastic ones from Undercity. So Widow's Wood, as I mentioned later, is a Kickstarter for the Hordes version of Undercity. So this is the co-op dungeon crawler. I say dungeon crawler, but it takes place outside. Anyway, I backed it to the level where they sent me a giant treasure chest. Not a plastic treasure chest, not a small treasure chest, an actual, like if you imagine the kind of thing you'd see in the corner of a dungeon, a full-size treasure chest made of wood with like crocodile skin inlay and widow's wood and bows on the top and giant leather straps that open up and reveal an entire chest that comes with all the sort of like broken token cardboard organizers that you glue together, then creates enough trays to store everything from widow's wood and the stretch goals and all of Undercity into one giant box, all organized. And so
how much does it weigh?
Well, the first joke my daughter made was, Dad, that is in no way portable. And I'm like, but it's a treasure chest. But she's right. So it was kind of weird going into the game store. I was carrying an ink. I was going to organize and I'm getting my posse together. I had this small group of guys that all, like me, love dungeon crawlers. And the problem with dungeon crawlers is they're generally campaign driven. So you need to find the same group of people who are willing to play with you over and over again over a course of several weeks to get sort of the story going and the character development and all that. So I got this group of guys that are into that. So I said, I'll bring the game in. Maybe we won't start today, but you guys check it out. And I spent like an hour and a half just organizing stuff there whilst a bunch of people played Malifaux, and I got to watch that while I organized my Widow's Wood. But yeah, it weighs probably about it's not 10 pounds, feels like too much to say, but it's not much less than that. So it's pretty heavy with all the wood in it and all the components and all the books and the tons of cardboard that make up all the tiles for the game board. It's a pretty hefty prospect, but it does look really cool, I got to say. So I'm really pleased with this thing. Now I just got a fingers crossed I play the game more than twice because that's always embarrassing, right? Yeah. So
yeah, you should definitely dedicate at least two times playing.
I'm feeling like if I can get 5 or 10, if I can get through one of the campaigns, like I got through half the Undercity campaigns, that's a start, but I want to get through the entire Widow's Wood campaign because I feel like I'd accomplish something if I did that. So that's my goal. So, that's modeling. What about other geeky goodness like books we're reading or video games or TV shows? Lindsay, what are you watching and reading?
Let's see. Right now I am reading Franny and Zoe, which is a really old classic book by the same guy who did, I want to say Catcher in the Rye, but I'm not entirely sure off the top of my head because it's late and I'm half drowsy. But it's fantastic. It's one of those books where you're just like, oh man, I need to read this whole chapter again because the guy's buttons probably meant something really important. They said it a bunch of times. I'm going to go back and see if I can figure out what it is. But it's really great. It's very in the style of Great Gatsby, where it's very successful people pretty much stressing out about things that don't matter, which is, I find, entertaining and a good perspective to have. And then I've been reading a ton of John Carter because John Carter is my favorite thing in the world. And I'm always reading a ton of John Carter. I always have like a giant John Carter book next to my bed, and I just read it whenever I need like a pick-me-up.
Nice.
What'd you think of the movie?
I actually loved the movie.
Yeah, I thought it was great.
I really liked it. It was very true to its original content. I mean, especially for a movie.
And I think you had to remember the time the books were written, right? So part of the problem was like people, it's kind of like people who see Tolkien are like, man, that's so derivative. And it's like, you don't understand.
Yeah, it's right. I could go on about John Carter forever.
Yeah.
But John Carter, he was, in my personal opinion, incredibly progressive for his time period. Because this is like during like World War I.
Right.
Like this is old literature. And he's talking about like the princess whose name is Dejah Thoris. She like denies John Carter when he tries to hit on her. She ends up just like rescuing herself a bunch of times. She ends up saving John Carter a bunch of times. Mm-hmm. She just has like no tolerance for anything. Like she's not going to be the damsel in distress that's waiting for someone. And then the other one, Sola, which is the Green Martian that they kind of team up with, is also a woman and also just incredibly like independent. She's unlike her races, which is really wrathful and violent. She's really gentle, and she just doesn't want to live a lie anymore. And she ends up like running away. And she has this incredibly like messed up and deep backstory that just for the time period and the context that it was a science fiction novel, and really the first science fiction novel of that style. It's just, I love it. Like, I just think that no one gushes about it enough, essentially.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
I love it.
I'm a big fan too. I think it's great.
He was such an incredible writer for his time. And not just like scientifically, because a lot of stuff that he did, it's, kind of like Jules Verne. A lot of stuff came to pass eventually, or came very close to it.
Right.
But he was also really progressive in how he depicted the gender roles on this world and some of the other things that I've always really loved.
That's great. Cool.
And let's see, video games, it's not been as intellectual. It's been Pokemon, a lot of Pokemon.
Now, is it Pokemon Go, or, because here's my daughters, my daughters have concerns about Pokemon Go, and here's their concerns. They basically call people who play Pokemon Go Pokeposers. Because
really?
Well, here's the thing. So they were super and still are into, Pokemon and all the DS platforms, right? So what bothers them about this is a lot of their friends at school who play Pokemon Go don't even know how to properly pronounce Pokemon because it's their first exposure to the Pokemon universe. So
yeah, that could be frustrating.
So this is like, they're like, no, you don't, either you play Pokemon or you don't. And so, and see, I'm one of those Pokeposers because I never played Pokemon on the DS, but I have played Pokemon Go, thinking it would allow me to connect with my daughters. And they're like, no, this is just not.
I don't know.
So right.
Yeah, that's just.
So I had a dad fail there, but
yeah, I don't know as a dad you're gonna be able to do that.
Did you play?
I've been playing Pokemon since the first one, right? So I got the Game Boy when it first came out. Right. It was like my first video game system ever, or like the first one that was all mine. And I got Pokemon, and I loved it, and I've been playing it ever since. Up until the most recent one, I've never stopped. And I recently met one of my friend's son, who's like 4, and he plays a ton of Pokemon Go. And I got lectured about how I wasn't cool because I didn't know Pokemon. And I was like, no, child. You don't even understand who you're talking to, right? Like, I was digging this before. I have TVs older than you, first of all.
I have TVs older than you.
And I've been playing Pokemon
I have just Pokemon older than you.
Your age. Like, it's just, I've been playing Pokemon longer than you. Like, your dad was a kid when I was playing Pokemon. But I'm not cool. Like, he wouldn't believe me. He got angry because he would like try to quiz me. He's like, oh yeah, what does Pikachu evolve into then? I'm like, oh yeah, it's a Raichu. And he's like, nuh-uh, it's a Pichu. I'm like, no, that's wrong.
Right.
And he got all angry. he like
See?
stormed off. He's like, you don't know.
You're seeing the Pokeposer thing because the Pokemon Go folks don't know the depth and richness of the Pokemon universe fully. That's part of the problem. So that's really that's really interesting. So do you enjoy Pokemon Go, or are you pretty much sticking with the classics on the DS platform?
Yeah, I like it a lot. My phone has trouble running it.
Oh.
So it's hard. Like I ended up uninstalling it, but it wasn't because the game wasn't good. And especially since I'm in airports all the time and traveling all the time, I actually thought Pokemon Go was really fun.
Right, that's like the treasure trove of Pokemon in the airport.
Yeah, it made being in an airport way better. It saved being in an airport. But it just when I was playing it, it had some glitches. I heard that since then they've patched it up quite a bit, so I might be willing to try it again.
All right.
But it was making my I have Audible and I love Audible to death, and it was making my Audible glitch, and I was like, sorry.
Yeah.
You can't mess with Audible. Yeah, Audible.
Pokemon Go.
Audible trumps everything
Can't
else.
endanger the Audible.
No,
there's no way of these two I'm going to choose Pokemon Go.
Yeah.
But it's still fun. It's always been like my go-to de-stressor. And I don't know all the Pokemon anymore. I don't even know the new ones very well, but it's still really, really fun. And mostly Phoenix Wright is the other game I play a lot. So I've been playing the new one.
Yep.
The Spirit one. So it's really good. I can't believe they're still that good.
That's awesome. Very cool. Well, Craig, what about yourself, sir? What are you reading and watching?
Well, I'm still listening to the Dark Tower Wolves of the Kala.
Yeah, you liking it? 'Cause that's one of my favorites.
I'm enjoying it. It's the constant shift in theme and tone from book to book always throws me, but then it always brings me right back to the point where I went to the movies today with my son's friend that we met through the Fresh Air Fund is up again this summer, and the three of us went and saw Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And it's the first time in over a month I've actually seen the Dark Tower preview
Gunslinger
again.
trailer. Yeah, right.
And I was a million times more excited to see it than I was the first time, because now I've
you get it.
I'm into book 5 already.
Yeah, when he starts,
he
starts reciting the mantra of the gunslinger,
you get
he who aims
chills.
with his hand has forgotten the face of his father. I'm like, sold! Sign me up!
Yeah. But then he does it wrong, or he leaves parts out, and I'm I know that's wrong now.
Right.
So I don't know.
Right.
It's a mixed blessing.
It is.
That's so cool.
I can't wait. And I'm a huge Idris Elba fan. So
right. Yeah, good casting too. Looks good.
Yeah, absolutely. For TV, I was sidelined medically for a little while last week and got a lot of TV in.
Well, that's a bonus, I guess.
So I got all caught up on Dark Matter and Killjoys, which longtime listeners will remember. Russ and I go back and forth on this one because I think I like them both. Russ definitely likes Killjoys more than Dark Matter.
Yeah.
And I always said the Dark Matter storyline was better, but the writing and the acting on Killjoys was better. Well, the acting and the writing has gotten better on Dark Matter, but not as fast as the plot and the storyline has gotten better on Killjoys.
Yes.
So I think I'm on the Killjoys boat now.
Welcome to the party, my friend.
The characters and the writing is still awesome, and now it's this really cool, wider story.
Yeah.
Whereas I still really enjoy Dark Matter also, but I think it's not quite up to par against Killjoys. I watched last season of The Strain.
Yeah, what do you think of that show?
Which I had on my DVR forever, and it's neat, but it's not compelling.
Yep.
Preacher, the second season is grotesque and wacky fun.
I'm loving every moment of Preacher.
I'm still enjoying it. I'm enjoying it.
The whole God actor situation cracked me up. I couldn't stop laughing at that scene for like 20 minutes. Anyway, sorry.
I'm a homeless man, and at the end, we're not really homeless people. We're actors.
Right.
But we were affected by Katrina as well.
Oh, man. That's such a good show.
So, Castlevania, the 4-episode series on Netflix.
That was good,
I get it, but I didn't really enjoy it. It's not really my thing, and I felt the violence, in particular, the violence involving children, even though it's animated, was unnecessary. So I didn't
that's
really
always tough.
It's a vampire.
Did you see the original?
I did not. No.
Okay. I haven't seen it. I've seen the original, but I haven't seen the new one. I was just curious.
Yeah. I can't tell you how that went. I'm loving the new season of Game of Thrones, however.
Right. It's great.
I know. I just saw the first one.
And we really can't talk about it because it's still
not going to spoil anything.
But oh my God,
can't.
that's a lost chapter in of itself. It's time for season 7 Game of Thrones.
Well, we got to wait. We got to wait a little more.
Yeah, we do.
Season,
yeah,
but I was watching the second episode last night the last night Karen worked when she came home. And I very seldom will like shut her out when she comes home from work. Yeah. But she came home and came in and was like, so tonight, and I was like, because it was like the last wow. 10 minutes of the second episode.
See?
And people who've already seen it will know you just can't interrupt somebody in that 10-minute period of time.
Yeah.
So it was just like, whoa, it's like body blow, body blow, body blow. I was like, oh, okay, I can't focus on anything else right now. So I'm really enjoying that. I have also gone to the movies a lot lately.
I guess.
I've seen Spider-Man twice now. Yeah. Really enjoyed Spider-Man. I think it's a really, really great story, great characters. I just love the way that the Marvel Cinematic Universe continues to evolve and to grow and to develop and still stay true to that vision.
Spidey was awesome.
I mean, right now, like you can just get one little cameo and you're like, oh my God. And it's just so rich with connotation because of everything that happens behind it. Wonder Woman I saw, but we're going to talk about that in the last chapter, or did in the past talk about that in the last chapter.
You are so good at this.
I won't go too much into it. I did enjoy it.
Yeah.
War for the Planet of the Apes.
Yeah. How was that?
I such a waste of time.
I could have saved you money on that one. Come on.
To quote a great man.
Yeah, I could have saved you time on that one.
No, but I mean, I went, I had the time and I wanted to go see that, and Valerian wasn't out yet, which apparently is also a waste of time, but I haven't seen that yet, so I won't comment.
All right.
But War for Planet of the Apes, could they pack another trope into that movie? I bet they could if they tried, but I wouldn't.
The answer is always yes.
Right.
Yeah. It's like, I mean, could they pack the one thing they couldn't apparently pack in there was a satisfying ending to the trilogy. So I didn't like the characters. I didn't like the writing. I didn't like the acting was actually pretty good. I mean, it's a good cast, but the story was just thin. To put it bluntly and to put it mildly, and it's like the story itself was just so full of, you could just write the next scene before it even began over and over and over again, and you're like, oh, that's gonna help. I mean, it was just, I really did not enjoy it. And then I saw Dunkirk.
Now, how was that? 'Cause that's being heralded as like the war movie of war movies. So what'd you think?
I enjoyed it, but it takes a very interesting angle at editing. It's three. If you know it, like if you remember the movie Love Actually,
right,
which is like 4 different stories that all come together at one moment and then spread out again.
Well, that could be cool. Did he go that route?
This is kind of the war movie version of that.
Oh,
in that you've got the guys on the beach, the guys in the air, and the guys on the water,
and they all kind of come together.
Except that they all start at a different point in time, and they all progress at a different rate. So it's very weird. Like the guys on the beach, their story is like a week long. The guys on the boat, their story is like a day long, and the guys in the planes, their story is an hour long, and they're interwoven. And then at the end, they mostly come together. But even then, there's elements of like that they bring in flashbacks. So you're like, oh, that's what happened to that guy. But instead, it just kind of muddles the timeline even more, or did for me anyway. So great acting. I mean, it is a very, very compelling story. The special effects were insane. But I just found the choppy timeline, which was intentional, I believe. I just found it to be too distracting in the end for me to really, I just spent too much time. Like when I was watching War for the Planet of the Apes, I spent most of my time going, that doesn't make it. I mean, the military stuff made no sense. Like every scene had something in it that made no sense. In Dunkirk, I was constantly pulled out of the movie because of the shifts in time. And wait a minute, I thought it was nighttime, but now it's daytime. Wait a minute, I thought those guys left before, but not after. So like, I get what they were trying to do. I just don't know. And I don't know if you could tell the story they wanted to tell without doing it that way, but it just constantly brought me out of the story. So it wasn't an immersive experience.
All right.
And that was me.
All right.
What about you, Russ?
Well, I got late to the party on Injustice 2. So have you guys heard of this game? It's a video game.
Oh yeah.
So it
took me a second. I haven't heard anyone talk about it for a while.
Well, I haven't talked. It's been out for a while, but I just got it. My daughters and I picked it up. It's a fighting game, but it's DC heroes. So it takes place in the DC universe, and you can play Wonder Woman fighting Superman or whomever. Green Lantern's in there. Pretty much everybody in the DC universe is in there at some point. Amazing graphics, really cool fighting style. If you like fighting games, it's good. But what's really impressive about this game, especially since it's a fighting game, is it's got a phenomenal story. Like, really, really good. It's like watching a CGI movie in the DC universe while you're playing a fighting game. And it's a better DC story than any DC movie ever produced, which is, I know it's a low bar, but it's really, really good. Really good. And it takes place after Injustice 1, which I did not play, but I didn't have to play it, but we really enjoyed it. My daughters have already blasted through the story and solved it, and I'm trying to catch up. But a lot of fun. And if you like DC heroes and fighting games, I would definitely recommend it.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
Because I heard a rumor about the Injustice games. I want to know if it's true.
Okay.
I heard they have the best, and I think when people say best, they mean like the most hilarious or just crazy, like finishing cutscenes. So
yes.
not like finishing Mortal Kombat style finishing where you actually destroy the person.
No,
but like when you win, your character, like it's the most ridiculous, like Superman, yeah.
Yeah, so here's what they do.
Superman will like rip off his suit and be in like in a politician's uniform and go talk off the White House.
Oh no, it's awesome. So like
stuff.
They do really cool, like so they have each hero has a signature power move, right? And it's not a finishing move. You can actually pull it off anytime once your power. So as you fight each other, this little power meter raises, and you can spend that power meter for different things. But if you let it max out and you pull both triggers, your hero will do their power move. So like Poison Ivy will like breathe her little perfume kiss at you, right? Or Batman will like leap over you. And when Batman like leaps over you, and you got to time it right. So you can waste your power move, and if you don't time it right, nowhere to be, or your opponent doesn't block it, nothing happens. But if you pull it off, like Batman will leap over you and knock you down, and then he'll talk into his wrist communicator and say now. And all of a sudden this wire has been attached to your leg. You didn't notice it. The other guy gets pulled into the sky. All of a sudden he's flying through the air hanging by the bat jet. The bat jet drops him off in front of the moon, dives down, shoots him with a bat Gatling gun. Every time there's a hit, you're seeing your damage meter go down, 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 down. Then you smack into the ground, and then Batman stomps on you once. And this may or may not have killed you. It could just done a lot of damage because, like, this could have been Superman on the receiving end of this. And they all do something crazy, like Supergirl, like, flies you into space, smashes you into a comet, hits you with laser vision. I mean, it's like, and some of them.
Yeah,
like,
I think that's what I was hearing of. Someone told me to literally look up a YouTube video because
they're crazy.
They said it was just amazing.
They're awesome. And what's funny about them is, like, some of them make sense and some of them don't work. Like, for example, if Catwoman were ever carried into space, blasted through an asteroid, and smashed into Earth out of orbit by Supergirl, she'd be dead, right? Because Catwoman's just a person. So it makes no sense that she survives that. But then, like, obviously, if Supergirl did that to Superman, that would still, or Green Lantern, that would make sense that they were still alive afterwards. So it's kind of, there's those little discontinuities, but it's still awesome. Like, and all the moves are great. Like, Catwoman runs over you twice with her motorcycle and then smashes you. So, like, there's really cool. And the intros, and what's really cool too about the game, like, the attention to detail is really cool. If you're a DC fan, like, you know how in like all the fighting games, two heroes walk out, one has a smack talking line and the other one has a smack talking line? Well, the lines they read to each other are different depending on who they're standing in front of. So like, Supergirl will say like, "Oh, Clark, I haven't seen you in a while." Like kind of like they'll talk to each other like they're the right heroes. And what's even cool is if you both pick the same hero, like if we both pick to be Supergirl versus Supergirl, they'll talk to each other like, "Oh, you must be from another Earth." Like, or they'll have a reason like, "Are you, are you Two-Face?" or whatever. Like they'll have these little lines that actually make sense as to why they look exactly the same. So it's really real. The attention detail on that stuff is really, really great. So I would highly, if you're a DC fan, you got to try this game out. Even if you're not a fighting game person, it's really worth checking out. So really enjoy that. I am blasting through the Dresden File books. I mentioned before I took a break from these, but now I'm back. I'm all the way up to, Turncoat. I just Turncloak. I just finished, or Turncoat. I think it is. I just finished, and now I'm on to Changes. So I'm getting pretty high up in the Dresden series.
Yeah, you're really getting there.
I am, and I'm nervous because is it over, or is he taking a break? Because he hasn't published a book since like 2014. I think.
No, I think he just annoued the title for the next one. He published a book like 2 years ago.
Oh, was it? Okay, good.
Yeah, he did. It's like a heist kind of theme one. I'm trying to think of the name.
Yeah, I know he's been doing other stuff. Like I read Aeronauts Windless and some other universities are written, but I didn't know if he's back to Dresden. But I'm excited that he is because I'm really, and it's getting now where it was kind of for a while, like every Dresden story was kind of this good but formulaic. And as I'm getting later in the series, the formula is shifting now because now he's got so much universe built and so much character development happening in Dresden and like everybody he knows that now it's like really interesting. It's like seeing, and he's like leveling up him as a wizard and adding all these powers and he's evolving, but his friends are evolving and he's running. It's really cool. I'm loving it. So looking forward to that.
Yeah, it's probably one of my favorite series of all time.
Yeah, I love it. Craig, I did see Valerian.
And
I thought
I can't wait for this.
Okay. So now I've not read the graphic novel, so I know it's based on a graphic novel. Visuals were stunning. I mean, really good effects.
Yeah.
However, it's mostly exposition. So the entire movie is pretty much look at this amazing world, this amazing sci-fi universe. And it did a good job of that. Like there were some really cool premises. Like there's this whole thing with an interdimensional market that people are in. And the way they do it is really cool. And there's some gizmos where you can, I don't want to spoil anything. That scene was really awesome. So the ideas and the thinking behind how the universe works and all these sci-fi gizmos were awesome. There was zero, in my opinion, zero chemistry between the two lead actors, which is a problem because it's a romance story. And that's not any kind of spoiler because it's literally right from the very first scene. They're clearly meant to be involved. And so that's a problem. And the overall plot is essentially the first 10 minutes and the last 10 minutes is the movie plot. Everything else is just sort of exposition about the universe. So I don't know. I mean, it's fun to watch from an eye candy point of view, but I really like a little more story in my movie. So I can't give it a very good recommendation.
Our friend Christian, who has read the comic, did say that it was visually stunning also, but the story was very thin.
Yes,
so
I would agree with that.
It may not be that it's exposition. It may just be that the source material is lacking as well.
Right. Well, that could be too. You already talked about
sad.
Yep. You already talked about Game of Thrones, so done that. Now, are either of you watching Twin Peaks?
No.
Okay.
No.
All right. So I did. I'm old enough to have watched Twin Peaks when it originally came out in the early 90s. And
are they still making it?
Well, that's the thing. So
I was trying to remember Twin Peaks, and I was like, wait a second.
So here, let me tell you.
Old show.
Let me tell you what has happened with this show, and it's really interesting. So, Twin Peaks is this sort of the original Twin Peaks, which aired in the early 90s, between like 91 and 92. It's like 2 seasons. This is a show about a murder that takes place in this little northwestern town in the United States, or it's right on the Canadian border there. But what's interesting about it is all this crazy, as you watch the show, all this crazy new supernatural stuff is going on, right? Like the owls are not what they seem. There's possession. There's demons. There's all kinds of crazy stuff happening. But it's really surreal. Like the show was known for being sort of this really sort of out there, weird, wacky stuff involving midgets and all. It's a very bizarre show. But anyway, so Showtime picked up the rights and decided to do a 3rd season that takes place 25 years after the original show. So it's airing now because it ended in 1992 and it's coming out in 2017. So there is a new series. What's interesting about this is, and this is the part that's really creepy, if you rewatch the original Twin Peaks, which Nicole, my wife, and I did, near the very end of season 2, the main character, Laura Palmer, who is murdered, says to the main character, Cooper, I will see you again in 25 years. Mm-hmm. That line was recorded in 1992. And now, exactly 25 years later to the day, they've relaunched the series. So what's happened is they literally, it's like the show, it would be like they made the show in 1993 and just fast forward the next season 25 years later, because that's the premise of the show. And everybody needed to be 25 years older for that to work, and they actually are. So it's like, it's kind of strange. The thing about it is that the show is always surreal, and now it is super surreal. Like it is like crazy, crazy surreal stuff. So you have to be kind of into this out there thing, and it's getting so out there that even Nicole and I are like, well, this episode's a little bizarre. But it's still pretty compelling. Like I want to see where it lands, so I'm interested in it, but it's really weird, but it's kind of an interesting experiment. I've never seen a show contextually pick up 25 years later and actually make sense in any way, shape, or form. So it's kind of
it's really cool. A lot of my friends hold that show into like the same level as Firefly or some of the other cult classics. So
it is definitely a cult,
to check it out.
It's a cult classic. And the original series holds up reasonably well. Like we rewatched it, and if you give it 5 or 6 episodes, I think you'll be hooked again and rewatch it. And then there was a movie. So in like 1993, a movie came out because the show got canceled before they could really finish the story. But ironically, unlike Firefly, the movie didn't really bring anything to closure. It just sort of like added more complexity to it, and then they've redone the series 25 years later. So we'll see where this lands, but it's pretty interesting. So, whew, I think that's everything we've been reading, writing, and building. That's a lot of achievements. Are you achieved out, Lindsay?
Yeah, I feel extremely achieved.
I do too.
Mega achieved.
Yeah, I have reached the ultimate level of achievement.
Oh, that's something.
And now, in an attempt to bring a small amount of dignity and decorum to this otherwise base form of entertainment, and I use the term loosely, I am proud to present...
Oh, get on with it. It's time for App of the Ep.
Seriously, Wakeland, I used to have my own segment, now I'm relegating to announcing this pap.
Hey, you're lucky we still use you. Hey, welcome back to another App of the Ep. This time around, I want to talk about a game that was a pleasant surprise for me, and that is Elder Scrolls Legends: Heroes of Skyrim. So this is a brand new, free, again, air quotes, freemium game for iOS. I think it's also on Android. And the reason I say I was pleasantly surprised is because I'm not a big sort of like collectible card game fan, generally speaking. I mean, I enjoy them. I play them here and there. I've dabbled in Hearthstone and others, but you know, my daughters and I are pretty big Skyrim fans, and I'm a sucker for the art. So, and it was free, so I thought I'd download and try it out. And one of the things that really sucked me right in, and this is something I want to recommend highly, is turn on the audio, preferably with earbuds or headphones, and listen to the game. The music is fantastic. They spent Bethesda spared no expense on voice acting in this game. A lot of great voice acting, because the pleasant surprise for me was the really compelling story. So I got sucked right into the story. Your deck is your character, and those traveling with you. And eventually, basically, there's a story that strings together the various card duels that you have. But it's extremely compelling. And what also is compelling for me is how the decks build and evolve. So instead of just getting more cards for your deck, which is definitely something that happens in the game, and getting other decks, which is also something that happens in the game. So basically, different groups of people will eventually join your cause and help you out. And so during battles, you can choose whether it's Group A or Group B you're fighting with, which is basically you're using Deck A or Deck B. What I thought was really interesting was as your character levels up, you can choose, and in fact, you do level up cards in your deck. And when you level up the card in your deck, it's not just that stats get better, but the art actually changes. So you might have an insect companion that transforms into a giant version of that insect, which then later transforms into insectoid armor, which I guess you kill your pet or something. Or you'll be in a battle with wolves, and there's also these cool branching storylines. So you'll be in a battle with wolves, and you'll be victorious, and you'll find a wolf pup, and you can decide to adopt the wolf pup, which eventually evolves into a pretty cool card in your deck, or you can banish the wolf pup because the wolves attacked you or whatever. Let's say you're heartlessly and cruel or whatever kind of character you want to play, and then you get a different card, which is sort of an action that does something else. So it's really kind of neat because there's these forking choices you're making which affect your deck. You evolve and level up, which affects your deck. And of course, cards can level up, which is something you couldn't do in a physical card game, right? The cards physically change. But of course, in a digital card game, that's pretty cool. So I'm pleasantly surprised by it. I've just gotten to the point now where you can start getting into serious deck building. And so if that's your cup of tea, that's great. I'm not sure how much I'm going to get into that, but I'm really enjoying the storyline. So there's a pretty long main story that you can get pretty far without paying anything. So it's definitely worth taking a look. And that is Elder Scrolls Legends: Heroes of Skyrim on iOS and Android.
Thank you for listening to another scintillating edition of App of the Ep. A segment in which,
Hey, less of that. More just getting on with the show.
seriously, Wakeland, you are like school in summer. No class.
Hey, welcome back. And of course, since Lindsey is on the show today, we're so excited to have you here, Lindsey. We thought we'd talk a little bit to Lindsey, get to know her a little better, and then really dive in on with this whole Dog Mite Games thing. What's that all about? What do you guys make? And what are some of your cool products? And what you're up to next? I know you guys have been doing a lot of cool stuff. So Lindsey, first of all, we do have to ask the obligatory question we ask all first-time third chairs here on the show, which is, are you now or have you ever been a gamer?
I can safely say that I have been, and probably, although it may not be healthy for me, will always be a gamer.
You know, I feel like there should be some health research studies on the the quality of life of gamers into ripe old age. I think we have better.
I bet it's actually pretty good.
I think so too. It's like a stress management tool.
I would think so.
I
just think the con nights of 2 hours probably aren't doing me any favors.
Yeah, that's true. You know, the lack of sleep, if you do a lot of conventions, that's
but
probably
they're few and far between, though.
Well,
that's true. That's true.
I don't know, Lindsey. I'm curious about how many of those things you go to. But first, before we get to that, so you how long have you been a gamer? Like, what's your earliest memory of gaming, and what were some of the first games that really made you realize you're not a person who plays Monopoly as much as you are a hobby gamer kind of thing?
Right. Well, I started with video games as a really little kid. Mm-hmm. Which I'm sure a lot of other gamers have, with like the Nintendo NES.
Ooh, nice.
My parents had one. We didn't have cable, so there was a lot of Nintendo going around.
Yeah.
But my first tabletop game was actually Magic the Gathering. I started playing it, I think I was 8 or 9 years old.
Well, that's pretty young. That's nice. Yeah.
Yeah, I always had struggles reading. I was really behind as far as reading goes, and my parents, being nerds themselves, actually used Magic the Gathering to teach me how to read, and I got really into it, and now I like to think I'm actually a quite good reader.
That's awesome.
But it all started with Magic the card game.
That's fantastic. I like this. I think, if I remember correctly, Craig, I think Lindsey's the second person to come on the show that actually said gaming helped him become a stronger reader. Someone else had a story about that.
Yeah.
And it makes sense. Yeah, it really does. So you got into Magic. So did you stick with basically card games your big love, or did you move into board games, RPGs, or any of those other areas?
Yeah, I started with card games. I mean, I'm a girl, so it was always hard to find other girls that were into it, especially when the industry was a lot smaller. At least we were more spread apart. Mm-hmm. It was hard to find the game stores that had a community that was really open and everything.
Right.
And so I slowly got into D&D, and then I met people through that. And then I remember Killer Bunnies was the first time I saw like the new wave of tabletop games. And it's so funny because now I'm like, oh, Killer Bunnies, it's so kind of like a first starter, basic kind of everyone's first game. But Killer Bunnies opened the floodgates. And a couple of years later, I quit my day job and went into board game design full time. So
nice.
It was actually I owe Killer Bunnies quite a lot. So
Killer Bunnies was Killer Bunnies the game you're playing, and you're thinking, I don't want to belittle Killer Bunnies here, but is it going to be playing? I could do this. Was it like that moment?
Yeah,
like,
it's a very simple game.
Right.
And as I've become a much more experienced designer, I look back on it and kind of laugh a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, probably Killer Bunnies and Dead of Winter were the two stepping stones to changing my entire life. So I owe those guys, the people who designed them, quite a bit.
Yeah, Dead of Winter,
that's relatively recent.
Yeah, Dead of Winter. I used to demo it for Plaid Hat, and I think 2 years later, I went from demoing it to designing my own games. It had a massive impact on me.
Well, let's get into that story, because so many of our listeners always ask, like, how do you go from someone who loves games and wants to get in the industry to actually into the industry? So how did you make that jump from someone who likes to play card games and RPGs into I'm going to try to get a gig with Plaid Hat or get in the industry? Like, what were some of your first stepping stones there?
Well, probably two: the cons and podcasts. Mm-hmm. So I started by just exploring the industry, like exploring the different games that are out there. I played all these different games. I saw what was coming up. I didn't know that cons really existed at that point, but I worked in a taco truck on top of a roof.
Wow. That's an unusual gig.
That was my day job.
Now let me ask. I just have to ask you, because right now,
how did the truck get to the top of the roof?
That's exactly my point, Craig. Someone out there is yelling at the podcast.
Well, I think it's a question that asks itself.
It really does.
Well, we attached a lot of rockets to it.
What?
It was actually really complicated. There was a lot of rockets and then trampoline. And then we brought a
Nice.
physics expert, but
Okay, right.
Well, you
then
need
that's
that.
the work at all. So we just got a crane and lifted it on top of this like 3-story building.
Wow. A taco truck on it. Okay, sure. Wow.
But I actually used to listen to you guys in that taco truck back when, and like it was a job, but it wasn't my dream job or anything. And I remember it was like
Oh, it
150
had to be close.
degrees.
Okay.
And I'd be like listening to Rapid Fire
Wow.
and trying to
See?
play along in a taco truck while I wished I had a cooler job, like literally cooler in temperature and in.
Lindsay, you just gave me the best idea for a new bumper, the D6 generation in more taco trucks and roofs than any other
It is.
podcast.
I used to broadcast a show across the roof speaker system because
That is
it was
awesome.
easier to listen to.
That is the best story yet. Well, that's awesome, Lindsay. So you're in your taco truck on the roof. You're thinking, I really want a better job than working on a taco truck on a roof. So how did you make it happen? How did you get from taco truck on a roof to actually working for in the industry?
Volunteering.
Yeah, okay.
If anyone wants to get into the industry, if anyone's interested in making that jump or at least like exploring the options, start volunteering. Pick your favorite game company, pick your favorite game, look up to see who does it, call them and say, I will do whatever you want for free. I'll pay for my own room. I'll show up early. I'll work however many hours you want and just start doing that. And if you have to be super passionate to make it in this industry because it is so kind of a meandering way and not everyone can make it full time and it's really difficult. So you have to have that passion. But I found every volunteer that shows up and says, just give me work. I don't care how long it takes. I will be here every day, early and stay late. Those people make it into the industry pretty easily and they show up every year. And then a couple years later, almost all of them that I started with are now in the industry.
That's very cool. So your first. That's awesome. So your first gig was with Plaid Hat, and you were doing demos for them. And then how did it go from there? How did you get from doing that to the next step?
Well, I worked really hard on the demos. Like I said, I showed up early, stayed late, and all that jazz. And they invited me to be a play tester. And that's really where I learned how to design games. Being a play tester for any game company, but especially the ones that have very thorough play testing practices,
Right.
You'll learn so much. And then I went from that to kind of designing my own, and while all this is happening, you make more and more contacts every year. And I think it took me 2 years, and I applied for a job at Weird Games, and I was picked out of I don't know how many applicants, and I started designing for Weird. And then after releasing a couple games with them and working on Malifaux for a while, I made the jump to Dogmite to head up my own design team.
That's
which was
awesome.
super exciting.
That's awesome. I do want to talk about Dogmite too, but see, you got me real fascinated now. So because we're fans of Weird too, and we were very excited about
I
the
know
whole
you guys
Malifaux
are.
launch.
I didn't know if you knew that about me. That I was one
did
of the
not know
designers.
that. See,
I
I'm
did
learning.
not.
I'm learning other. So what projects at Weird did you work on? Which of the things were you involved in there?
I actually have a couple board games that are coming out with them.
Oh, sweet.
So they I did like work for Malifaux. Everyone at Weird works
Everybody
on
touches Malifaux, right?
Through the breach, that's like the standard bread and butter, so you can't get out of it. But I actually designed a game called Bayou Bash that they've announced that's coming out hopefully this fall.
Awesome.
And another an expansion for Darkness Comes Rattling, which is their very first board game.
Oh, very cool. Awesome.
Called War of the Spirits, and hopefully that'll also be out at some point this year or next year.
Well, that is super
Or early
exciting.
next year.
Well, congratulations on those two projects. I can't wait to see them. That's really cool.
Oh yeah, because you guys are Gremlin fans.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah,
do we have an update, guys?
We do.
What is? And
Starks
who's dead?
holding tight.
Starks are jammed
The Starks are holding tight.
They're holding tight, building up a good
Yeah,
stronghold.
we're jammed up pretty bad.
right.
Who's jammed up?
The Starks are pretty
The Starks are jammed up. I thought they're holding tight.
Well, it depends on which side of the border you're on.
So
By
let's-
the way, guys, there's a live Game of Thrones tournament happening in the other room with the Dogmite team.
Right.
And
so we're
they
getting an update now.
are
So the
giving
Starks are.
us updates on what family is going to come out on top in this tournament. Everyone's playing a different family.
So do we feel
Terrell's.
like? Do we feel like the Starks are in the early stage of the books, or are they getting the payback now in the later stage of the books? What's up?
It sounds like they sound very innocent right now, so I'd say
Okay.
pretty early.
All right.
Yeah, well, you can, like in the media, they came out really hard, and they were doing pretty good, but then some bad stuff went down.
Yeah. All right. All right.
They're a little jammed.
That's
up
enough,
right now.
guys. The trills are really cool. You take that back. All right.
All right.
Sorry, there'll be occasional interruptions here.
No, that's all right. We got to keep an update on the Game of Thrones.
The entire
tournament.
Dogmite team on vacation together. They're playing a tournament, and you're talking to us.
And Lindsay's taking time
Who's
out to
the
chat.
real winner here? That's
Great
what
audio is happening right now.
That's right. Quality radio as we speak. That's fantastic. So that's awesome, Lindsay. So that's great. So then you got to Dogmite, and and how did they? Was it just one of those things?
How did that happen?
Yeah, did they reach out to you, or did you reach out to them?
They did, because it was hard to leave Weird. Weird is such a cool company.
Yeah.
So it was definitely like a big decision for me, and I had been friends with them for a couple of years. They work with a lot of different game companies, so I had known them through. They worked with Plaid Hat on like Ash's tournament prizes and things like that, and I had just gone out with them a few times at cons, and we were really good friends, and I started working with them more and more, and they said, like they used to make games, and they really moved into these wooden products, and they came to me, and they're like, we're ready to get back into games, and we want you. And then they literally gave me an offer I couldn't refuse, and I moved up to Michigan from Georgia.
Wow, that's awesome. That's
It was pretty cool.
Were these guys? Was this a rogue band of lumberjacks who worked on games, then went back to the wood, or is this a rogue band of game designers that were game designing and then turned to wood, which then brought them into the lumberjack realm?
That's a great question, Craig. That is a great question.
Thank you. I'm just curious how that particular career path goes.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I believe everyone in the industry has a really interesting story, because there's no one normal amongst all of us.
No.
But they actually were game designers. They have 2 games released. The first one is called Lake Billy, which is very much them. It's a drinking game about being the biggest party on a lake. They live next to the Great Lakes, so that was really close to home for them. And then they had a Animal Farm themed game called Livestock Uprising.
Oh, I love that already. I'm Googling this now.
And it's ridiculous. And they started making wooden troughs for the Kickstarter as stretch goals.
Right.
And the wooden troughs were so popular that they found out that people were like pledging to extra games to get extra troughs for other games.
Ah.
And they're like, wow, we should probably like look into this wood thing. And then they tried a dice chest, and it did amazing on Kickstarter. And they're just like, you know what? We're probably going to move into the wood lumberjack thing. And they wear a lot of plaid, and many of them are missing fingers and appendages. So I felt like it was really a better move overall.
I felt like it was
you really should choose your career based upon your physical deficiencies, deformities, and fashion sense. Also,
yes,
it's like one of those career counseling flowcharts. Do you have all 10 fingers?
It makes so much more sense.
No,
if you see them, you're like, oh yeah, that was a good move.
Well, I'm looking at I'm at dogmite.com right now, right? Looking at the company profile here, and I have to say that first of all, you guys have the coolest job titles on the planet. First of all, just throwing that out there in the industry, because
thank you. That was a big part of my jump. I was like, I can get that business card,
right? Valkyrie of operations. I mean, how does one become the Valkyrie of operations? Is that like do you actually have to like float in and make sure if there's anyone dead, you got to pull them out of the sawmill? How does that work?
Yeah,
exactly.
I kind of think that it lives up to the title quite a bit, because especially at cons, I'm the one that's like, all right, guys, go to bed. Like, you all have an interview and it's live in the morning. Like, you guys, I'm going to get a taxi right now for everyone, and you're all going to get in it right now. So I'm very much the one that goes onto the battlefield and drags their butts out of there.
I love
and keeps them responsible and keeps them on point. Because a lot of lumberjacks, it's a good amount, and they're growing. So now there's a lot more lumberjacks that I have to keep tabs on as the company grows, and I need more Valkyries, honestly.
So let's talk. So did Dogmite exist? Were you pretty much like at the inception of Dogmite, or did Dogmite as it is today start before you or after you? Like, I guess I'm asking you, are you right from the beginning with them, pretty much?
Pretty much from the beginning. I met them. I was demoing. I was volunteering for Plaid Hat. I was demoing Dead of Winter, and I was exhausted, and I was at the Gen Con floor. I was like leaning up against the wall with my legs out, because if you don't know this about Gen Con, if you have never volunteered before, they don't let you in until a certain time when you work at one of the booths, and they're very strict, like unnecessarily
agreed
extreme. So I had gotten into an argument with one because I had like my coffee for something from last night, and for whatever reason, I couldn't get more, and I was like, I just need my coffee. Like, just let me go get my coffee. And I got into arguments, so I like sat down on the ground and was just like, oh man, I'm really tired. And they had gotten their very first employee, and he had promptly tripped over my legs and crashed to the ground.
Yeah.
And the owners, the Mike and Mike, rushed up and apologized for their employee just falling over me. And then we started talking about how like no one was allowed in the hall and how we wish that we could get in a little bit earlier because there's not a lot of time to set up. And I remember how proud they were that they had their very first, like they like presented him before me, and they're like, "This is our first employee, and it's amazing, and this is real, and this is a business." And I was like, "That's cute, guys. Like that's really cool." And it's so funny now because now we just got our 15th employee.
Nice.
And they're still proud of like every single one. They're like, all right, number 15. Like,
that's awesome.
We're big dogs now. And then like, and they'll get 5 more, and they're like, all right, this is it, guys. This is really big.
Well, it seems like, I mean, I'm just loving the fun, like looking at the website and looking at the company profile and the fun little job descriptions and bios for each of your team members there. It's clear that you have a really cool culture there and really cool and really passionate about what you guys are doing. So you'd mentioned, they had the Kickstarter for their first game. It turned into, wow, these woodworking little dice troughs are the way to go. What kind of turned into product one at Dogmite? Was it the sort of what they called, I guess, the dragon sheets or the little dice cases, or what kind of got it go? What was the first like real official Dogmite product?
What's the Alpha Strike?
Yeah,
the Alpha. It was probably the dice chest was our very first product. And it did well on Kickstarter. Nothing crazy. I believe it did around 45 or 50,000.
Yeah.
But for a small company, that was really big.
Sure.
And that really cemented their decision. I think Dragon Sheath was the first big success. Mm-hmm. And up until just recently, we've made stuff for just role players.
Right.
And then we've recently broken into the board game community because I came on board and I was like, I play board games and I know what I want and we're going to make it right now. And they're like, okay. Yeah. And the component collector was the most recent one, and it did amazing. Like, it blew everything out of the water. So it started with humble beginnings with a dice chest, and it's ended with this massive onslaught of what we call the component collector. Yeah.
Well, it's fantastic because I discovered you guys, and it was funny because when Lindsey was reaching out, we were talking, and we kind of bumped into each other on email, and then it was like, why don't you come on the show? But what I didn't know that Lindsey was a listener, and she didn't know that my family was already huge fans of adventure cases.
I know. I had no idea.
No, we went to Gen Con. I don't remember when the adventure cases came out. I guess it was 2 years ago.
Oh, but I remember when you got them. They were birthday presents.
So my daughter's birthday is right around Gen Con every year, my oldest daughter. And my family were huge D&D fans. And she's walking around, and one year for her birthday, we said, you can get one really cool thing at Gen Con. You want it to be an awesome bag, like a battle foam
brace
bag
yourself,
or
Lindsey.
whatever.
This is at Gen Con. She's offered the chance to get one cool thing.
And then she's like,
anything?
Yeah,
in
pretty
the
much.
Entire vendor hall.
Pretty much. But I'm kind of thinking, she won't pick. But she did. She's like,
yeah.
Dad, you got to see this. And she drags me over to Dogmite's booth, and there are the adventure cases. And for those people who haven't seen these things, they're just awesome. They're like little mini. I don't want to call them dungeon master screens because they're really for players too. But they look like little chests. They pop open. They got little side panels that flip out. There's all these cool options for lighting and little pods, and it's basically a place to store all your little knickknacks for your RPG character. And it gives you
know what it looks like to me, Russ?
What's that?
Looks like if you can't afford a Geek Chic table, which of course none of us can now because they went out of business, you bring your own Geek Chic table to the table with one of these adventure cases because it's got all these cool plugins. Right. So your game station is now as cool as any, boutique gaming table.
Exactly.
It does. And then it looks good on a table.
It really does. And there's this awesome, and you guys did it brilliantly. There's this awesome 3-dimensional relief of some kind of cool. There's one that looks like a Skyrim helmet. There's like a Mind Flayer one. And what's cool about him is that you did it the right way so that when you hinge up the box and you have it so it's like a little thing, the rest of the players are looking at your cool logo on the front of your thing. So you can get if you're playing a dwarf, you got the axe and shield. If you're playing a spell, it's just really cool, and it adds so much ambiance, and they love them. My youngest daughter's got one. My oldest daughter's got one. They use them all the time. They store all the stuff. They treat them with the utmost respect, and it's just awesome. It really, and so it got me into really appreciating the
Don't
quality.
tell them that we have a lifetime guarantee. Just let them keep taking care of it as well as they can.
Right, that's a good point. Well, the best part is it really got them. I mean, it got me into appreciating what you guys do, and the quality you guys put into your stuff. And I'm saying this as just a general customer. I didn't use you guys from anybody, and now. I totally was all, as soon as Lindsay's like, hey, we're doing this Kickstarter. And I was like, oh my God, it's Component Collector. And as a board gamer myself also, I'm like, this is it. And I think I backed it maximum, Lindsay, just so you know, I got like the whole thing.
Because this interview would be over.
Right. So that was right. You're done, pal. So I love that. And because it's just a way to organize your game. And I just think the craftsmanship and the quality here is really amazing. And it blew us away. So we really appreciate the hard work you guys all do on this stuff. It's great.
Oh, thanks, guys. I think one of the really important things is that we actually use all the products that we make.
Well, that's cool.
So because we're all gamers, especially the guys have gotten way more into board games lately. Because I've moved in, I'm like, what are all these RPGs? Like, move over. We're playing games every other night, or every other game night. And we play Pathfinder every Saturday night, and we use the adventure case. We use our dragon sheaths to play Blades in the Dark every Friday night together. Nice. And we use the component collectors just constantly because they're so convenient. So I think one of the things is that we actually enjoy the product so much ourselves, and it keeps us on our toes, and it keeps the quality very high, because we're the ones that have to suffer through it with everyone else if it's not.
That's great. Now, one of the things, folks, a lot of times, now you've done quite a few. How many Kickstarters have you guys done now?
Component Collectors was our 10th. 10th,
yeah. So I knew it was quite a few. What are some of the big lessons? What are some? I mean, don't go into every detail of every one, but like what are some of the things you probably got it down to a science now after 10? So what are some of the things you always pay attention to? What are some of the pitfalls you've managed to avoid now? 2 or 3 things you'd always recommend people look at when they start thinking about a Kickstarter.
I would say the most important thing is community and transparency. And it takes time to build that. You're not going to do your first Kickstarter and just hang in there. But we've built such an amazing community with our fans, and we've been really transparent with them. We've told them, like, hey, when things have gone wrong. We've celebrated together. We've joked around with them. We've had pun contests on our Kickstarter. There's always someone on. We play all the games that they play. And we're having a blast, and I feel like they can sense that, and they're having a blast with us. So the thing I'm most proud about is that we have a really diverse, really welcoming, really fun and accepting community. We have moderators that go on our Kickstarters and won't tolerate any bullying or anything like that, which is tough on Kickstarter because there is no edit, really.
Right.
Like there would be on our normal forums, and we kind of are lucky enough that our fans enjoy the environment that we've built so much that they kind of police themselves and do it in such a kind way. Like if someone's really upset or someone's just kind of not really taking the conversation in a good direction, people will actually pretty gently nudge them and encourage them to have fun. And I'm so proud of our fans and everything.
Yeah, that's really that's great. That's awesome.
And we listen to them a lot. Like people, this past one, people were like, "We want pink. There's no pink. There's never been pink. We want pink so bad." And it was really tough to get it out in time, but we released a pink color. Like we listened to them, we're like, "You're right. Like there's a ton of people. I personally would love pink." So there's an immediate reaction to the fans as well, and I think it's so important at Kickstarter to listen to all these people that are like, "Oh, I have little girls and they want to play too, and they don't like any of the colors," and they'd be like, "Cool. Well, how would they like this electric pink color?" And everyone loves it.
I think that's awesome. I think so on Component Collector particularly. I think that was a really cool and very different. Like I haven't the idea of the modular components, and I love how they sort of stack up, and they almost look like a coaster set, and they're in their little rack, and then you pop them open, so they look great just on the side of in the room when you're not playing a game. Sort of what was the brainchild behind that, and how did it evolve as you went through the Kickstarter process? Well,
we were playing Super Dungeon Explorer when that was created. Yep. And if anyone's ever played Super Dungeon Explorer, they know that it is insane with tokens.
Yep.
And it's ridiculous. And we were so frustrated. We were using I think Tupperware, but it was like too big and it looked horrible on the table. And one of the guys couldn't not knock them over. Like, I don't know if he was like had a weird electromagnetic field or anything, but he just like kept tipping our stuff over. And one of the owners got really frustrated. And he went home that night and didn't sleep and showed up the next day with a component collector. And he was like, let's try this. It can't be any worse. And, you know, it was a really raw form. It was very different from what we ended up with because we went through a lot of testing. But that was the birth of it, was Super Dungeon Explorer and us not being able to not knock things over in general. That's why the magnets are so strong, because if someone can tip something over on a table, they will. Yeah. And we actually have a rule that a board game in our collection can't be considered actually part of our collection until someone has spilled something on it, kind of as its baptism into the collection.
It's not, right. It hasn't really achieved the replayability status until you've played enough.
Right. Until it has stains, it really can't be considered one of our games.
I like it. So that's, and I think that's what part of the genius of the component collector, right? So I have like, because I've been questing for ways to I'm a big Descent fan, and Descent is another one of those games where there's just so many different decks of cards and components and bits. And,
Oh yeah, it's a beast and minis.
Right, and what I think is cool about this is the modularity of it. So you can kind of, because one of the big challenges of trying, and people have made Craig mentioned Geek Chic, which made some really cool tables, and they try to put these things in the table, but the problem when you permanently build them to the table is there's only so much flexibility. With this idea is you can really mix and match them, and I think the magnets were a great idea of making them be able to interchange and click in and out, and it could either be a general pool of stuff or each player can have their own or whatever you want to do. It's really pretty clever.
Yeah, and I think it's one of the big things that we push for this Kickstarter, because we tend to do a lot of high-end stuff, and we really wanted something that everyone could use, especially since it was so useful. So we pushed to get the cost as low as humanly possible with our most basic set, because I mean, like, I'm never going to afford a Geek Chic table. I'm a game designer. Right. There's no way that's ever going to happen. So it's really nice to have like small things that make gaming so much easier and nicer, but isn't a huge investment and isn't unavailable to everyone else.
Awesome. And I think the adventure, it's sort of like, I didn't ask you like sort of what the mission statement of Dogmite is, but it sort of feels like it's exactly what you just said. It's like ways to enhance your gaming experience and really make it feel, rich and passionate, but not having to, you don't have to drop several $1,000s. You can do it in small little investments, but each piece feels like a heirloom quality, piece of craftsmanship, which is also pretty impressive.
Yeah, I would say that our mission statement is probably have fun. You're in the game industry, just have a blast. Make it available to as many people as you possibly can, and then with the quality being as high as you can make it.
Very cool. So what's next for Dogmite? You just wrap this Kickstarter up. You're probably in the middle of, I guess, lumberjacking a lot of wood there for making these things out.
There's a lot.
Because you guys did awesome,
right? I think we brought in like, I don't even know, 10,000 square feet of flame birch the other day. It was insane.
How does that look?
I couldn't even see the truck anymore.
I was going to say, do these giant 18-wheelers pull up with like logs and you mill them right there, or do you get them pre-cut?
They come pre-cut, but we do all of our own, like evening out and sanding and flattening the boards. So the boards are pretty raw. They don't have the bark on them or anything like that. They're cut to size. Right. But we certainly take them from that really raw form into smaller boards that we could use for a high quality product. So a lot of it's done in-house as much as we can.
Yeah. Oh, very cool.
But yeah, I hope you guys don't mind. I want to make a really exciting announcement.
Oh, sure.
Using you guys.
We love announcements.
We teased this on the Dice Tower Live during Origins, but awesome. I have a bit more information if you don't mind being the platform that
wait. We get a chance to scoop the Dice Tower.
That's what I'm saying. Right now, I'm giving you the opportunity to scoop the Dice Tower.
How could we not take that, Tom?
Right, exactly. I love it. So what's up? What are you guys doing next?
Well, the announcement that we did make at Origins is that Dogmite Games are getting back into games.
Oh, sweet.
Which is a big part of why I was brought on board. And we have the name of our first game. Are you guys ready?
I'm ready.
Yes.
It's called Countdown.
Okay.
Countdown.
And it is what I like to describe as Die Hard the board game.
Ooh.
So if you are a fan of 80s action heroes with ridiculous names, absurd villains, every 80 cliche that you can think of, and hostage situations, then this is a party game that you're going to really enjoy.
I love it.
A party game based on
80s cliche
Die
and
Hard.
80s cliche and
Where's the
hostage
fail?
situations.
Where's the possible failure
There
in
is
that?
no
I don't
possible
see.
Nothing could go
failure.
wrong here.
That
No.
is all you need to pitch to get investment in that game. That's awesome. So
Yeah, so we're really excited. We're super excited about the theme and super excited about just the idea. It's a big party game too. It's gonna go over 10 players. So
that's awesome. That is fantastic, Lindsay. So you guys are are you guys just, I know you probably can't reveal a lot about it, but where are you in the whole phase? Are you in early design? Are you in playtest? Where kind of are you in the process now?
we're currently in playtesting,
Yeah.
and anyone who's interested in playtesting for us, shoot us an email, info@dogmite, because we believe that the more eyes on a game, the better. This is something that I learned from Plaid Hat, that is just, you can't playtest enough, and I would love to have more people who thinks that it would be fun to sit in a bunch of chairs in a circle with their arms behind them and pretend to be hostages.
This sounds even now. See, you've revealed more about the gameplay.
I know.
Now I'm
See how I
getting visions
do?
of like some kind of variant on, like some kind of
Like
party
drip,
game.
drip, drip.
Oh, see now, and Lindsay mentioned earlier the way you get into industry stuff is to volunteer. So any listeners out there who are trying to think of how to do this, email Dogmite and get in on this game testing, this play testing thing. That sounds amazing. Very cool. Well,
Yeah.
Well, congratulations to you guys on the project starting. Now, is this something you think you'd kickstart? Is it something you think you go direct to market with? Are we too soon to say? Where are you guys on that?
We're definitely going to kickstart it. We're hoping to get it up in the next couple of months.
Oh,
so
soon.
probably 3 months out, 4 months out.
Great.
Is our goal. Now, it is in playtesting, and I'd rather have a really great game
Sure.
than a game that's hit a deadline.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not saying that it's impossible that it could get delayed if there's any sort of massive issues that come up with further playtesting. But it's going extremely well, and I don't see that happening at all. So I would expect to see it in the next couple of months here.
Awesome. Well, that's great. Well, that's super exciting. And thanks for all the detail on Dogmite. Now, before we go to our next segment here, I should ask you, though, what's the current update on Game of Thrones? Who's currently in the lead now?
Oh, it must be intense because they haven't. It's really
They haven't
quiet out there.
interrupted.
Right.
They haven't interrupted, and there's a lot of murmuring, and every once in a while, like a cry of pain.
Okay.
So they
Sounds
must
like
be,
the Lannisters, maybe.
Yeah,
on the
they must be
rise.
in the thick of it right now because whenever they're really quiet like this, either things are going really well or things have gotten really weird.
Excellent. Well, maybe they'll give us an update later. We'll take a quick break right now. We'll hear from Total Fangirl and other folks, and then we'll get back and we'll talk about ways we like to bling out our own games.
This is Total Fangirl. Regular Jane most days, Total Fangirl when the moment strikes. Han shot first. Starbuck is a guy. And Lestat, now there's a vampire. Hey everyone, this is Nicole, your Total Fangirl. You can follow me on Twitter at Nicole Wakeland and check out my blog, TotalFangirl.com. Our shout out is, as always, to all of our wonderful supporters over at Patreon. Head to patreon.com/the D6 Generation, and you too can support the show. It's summertime, which means there are all sorts of cool blockbuster movies coming out. And one that was coming out, or I don't know if it's really a blockbuster, but it's pretty nerdy because it's based on a comic, is one that I didn't even know was coming out, Atomic Blonde. And how I found out that this was coming out was because I was listening to the radio, excuse me, and Charlize Theron, did I say her name right? I may have said her name wrong. I feel like I never really know how to say it. Charlize Theron is what I'm going with. She was hosting a couple of hours of music. I believe it was on the 80s on 8, although I could be wrong on that too, because it's gone, so it's already done. But what was fun about it was she was telling all these songs that she was playing were because they were in the movie. And I had no idea that there were some kind of fun soundtracks. And I was thinking about how much a soundtrack really makes the movie. There's some movies you can't remember all the plot. You can't remember maybe the name of an actor. You might not remember exactly when it came out, but there was a certain piece of music that has sort of forever become synonymous with that film. And she was describing some of the takes in this movie, which I haven't seen yet. My hope is to maybe see it next weekend if time allows, but I did not get to see it this weekend as planned. But she was describing how there's this sort of slow, almost kind of sweet sort of song, and in the middle of this song she's kicking butt and taking names, which sounds like, from all the reviews I've read, is pretty much the gist of this, that you're not going to see this because you're looking for some deep emotional connection or to discover more about, the human condition or to broaden your horizons about the artistic merits of film. Nope, that's not what you're going to this. This is just a fun summer movie that basically involves a beautiful butt-kicking heroine. So I am all about that. I think it's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to seeing this, and I'm particularly excited now about hearing the music. The day was once upon a time where you see a movie and you love the music and you go buy the soundtrack. Now I'm thinking, if it's as good as that sounded, I may have to go out, see the movie, and build myself a playlist on it. So if you're into music and you're into butt-kicking heroines, it looks like Atomic Blonde is going to be pretty fun. If you've seen it already, you're going to see it. I'd love to know what you think.
Hey, welcome back. And here we are in the middle of summer. And of course, everybody's thinking about vacations. And what best to think about vacations than vacationing to places all over the world with like-minded individuals who enjoy the same things you enjoy, who will get the same things out of every little view and scene that you're getting. They'll enjoy your jokes. They'll probably even not mind sitting next to you at dinner.
That's
and
right.
of course, that means Geek Nation Tours.
Exactly. The best part about Geek Nation Tours, our friend Terrace and all the people at Geek Nation Tours now, Craig, he's staffed up now. So there are many tour folk who take you.
He's a magnate now.
But as Craig hinted, you go to these great tours, these amazing venues all around the world. And what's amazing about it is not only do the folks at Geek Nation Tours really know not just wherever you're going, whether it's a convention or a particular location, the things you'd want to see there because you're in that country or in that amazing venue, but they also know all the cool, lesser-known things in the area, right? So whether it's Gen Con or Essen, of course, over there in Germany, the gaming convention in Europe, which basically dwarfs pretty much anything we do here in the U.S., if you want to do that and you're not familiar with Germany or how to get around over there in Europe, no problem. Reach out to Geek Nation Tours. They'll take care of you for you. They have all the great things. And Craig and I have been fortunate enough that we go to some of these venues. Terrace and the Geek Nation Tours crew is there, and we get to see, and I get so jealous because I go to Adepticon pretty much every year. I go to Gen Con pretty much every year. And every time I'm there talking to the folks from on the tour, they're like, oh, yeah, we did this last time. I'm like, I didn't know that was a thing. I would like to go do that. So it's like Terrace just finds out these little things and gets these dinners with industry experts, and it's just, man.
The most important aspect of planning a tour for group touring is researching your destination and finding all those little things and making sure that the people who are paying to go on these experiences don't miss out on anything, because that's basically what you're buying, is this opportunity not to miss out on any of these different things. And for Gen Con, for instance, you're talking about a hotel you don't have to worry about. You're talking about all these different events. He knows what's going on, so you don't have to worry about missing an opportunity. And that's true of every one of these tours that he goes on. So not only are you going with someone who knows exactly what's going on, you know what's going to happen, you're maximizing the potential for your tour dollar, you're also traveling on a bus full of people who all love the same kinds of things you love. They've seen the same movies. They play the same games. They like I said, they'll look out at a view to take a very simplistic thing, and they'll say, "Oh, Game of Thrones," or Lord of the Rings." They're coming from the same place you are, which makes these trips even that much more enjoyable. So it's really, really kind of a magical experience.
Yeah, and again, I mentioned Essen earlier, and I got to mention this before we run out of time here, and that is that again, I don't know how Terrace does it, but he blends in people in the industry with these tours directly. Rodney from Watch It Played is going to be on the Essen tour with you, doing everything on that tour you do. So You're going to be hanging out with Rodney, getting access to all of his great experience and gaming expertise while you're on these tours. Imagine going to Spiel with Rodney and him being like, you know what games you don't want to miss? You know what I'm looking forward to seeing? Where I would go to this booth first. I mean, imagine that. Who else can do that for you? So, again, check it all out. Head on over to geeknationtours.com, click on the Tours tab, and see all the amazing offerings from Geek Nation Tours.
Yep.
You're listening to the Dice Tower Network at Dicetowernetwork.com. More fun than Merchant of Venus. Wait, what?
Who writes these?
Hey, welcome back, everybody. And of course, we've still got Lindsey with us from Dogmite. And we thought, well, I mean, Russ and I are always talking about bringing the bling, right? We're always talking about pumping up those games, and we need all the latest, coolest stuff. So we thought, who better to talk to about blinging out your games than somebody from Dogmite? But first, I think we missed a question.
Uh-oh.
From earlier in the show.
Yes.
Lindsey, what in the name of God, how do you get the name, where does the name Dogmite come from? Doesn't have anything to do with lumberjacks.
Oh, yeah, good
Doesn't have
point.
anything to do with games. Like, where does it come from?
So every time I've asked the guys this, they have given me a different answer, very similar to one of the Batman movies. So I can't tell you, I have never gotten a straight answer from them. Actually, Mike, the owner, is here. Mike, do you want to tell us how Dogmite, the name, was created? You have told me 10 different stories. Do you want to settle on one now?
Is there a real story?
I know. I've noticed that you've brought me another coffee cup, which I don't currently need. I have 4 coffee cups here.
They're very solicitous.
Yeah.
You have to speak into the microphone, sir. They are not psychic.
It was a voice from God.
Oh, guys.
Advice from God. All right.
You heard it here first.
Blues Brothers, essentially.
Yeah.
Dogmite on a mission from God.
There it is.
It's a never-ending mystery that we will never reveal.
And it's a never-ending mystery that he will never reveal, and he just tripped out the door.
All
So
right, there you go.
just
There you
take
go. There you have it.
that with a grain of salt, guys.
Too much feed.
Right. So I think it's a fun
All right.
topic. So
All
because
right.
Craig and I do spend, if you listen to the show with any regularity, which I feel sorry for you, but if you do, you will know that we do.
You have way too much free time on your hands.
We do spend a lot of time and passionately, what we call blinging out well, not just board games, all of our games. We spend a lot of time and money on just making them cool. And Lindsey, do you find this is something you do as well? I mean, I know as a company person for Dogmite, of course you'd say yes, of course I do. But do you, even before you joined Dogmite, was this sort of a thing where you find yourself just adding little bits and ththings to all the different games you enjoy playing?
Oh, yeah. I was totally a gearhead. I've always been a gearhead.
Nice.
I've tried, because I want to live more minimally, and I have so many board games. So I've tried cutting back, but I'm so addicted to just nice things. Although playing games with Dogmite and having my games destroyed by them has made it very easy for me to be like, maybe I just not invest in the super expensive token replacements.
Because they'll beat them up. So what is the first thing?
They're helping me break the habit.
Breaking the habit. I like, see, because my theory is always, and it actually, for the record, does not work. But my theory is that, because to your point, I think a lot of us have a tendency to collect more games than we can possibly play, right? It just sort of, your collection grows. So
addicting.
My theory's always been, if I really, really invest in one game heavily, maybe I'll play it, more and get better value out of it.
Yeah. Did that ever work?
No.
You ever play that game more?
No, I don't think so, because
you put money into it?
Yeah.
You know how many Rubber Bones figures I have?
Right. I think the problem,
Me too.
what I'm failing in my math here is the ROI is going up every time I spend more, and I'm not playing it appreciably more. So but at the same time, when it does come out, those few games that I really have completely, done some crazy stuff to, for me, even I'm a miniature gamer as well, right? So I paint a lot. So the few board games that I've really painted every model in and done things like that, when they do make it to the table, there's definitely that satisfaction of just a great looking experience.
Oh yeah, I think painting is the easiest and probably one of the cheapest ways to bling out your game, and it makes a massive impact on the table.
Now, do you find yourself painting any of your board game stuff?
Oh yeah, I love painting. I play a ton of miniature games too.
Yep.
And the miniature games are definitely, I think, what I tend to bling out the most.
Yeah.
Since I invest so heavily in them financially and just time-wise.
Right.
But, I've painted all of my Mice and Mystics.
nice.
Except for the new one, the birds, the tail feathers.
Tail feathers, yep.
And Descent. I've painted almost all the Descent. I've saved the dragons for last, and they're the only thing that I have. But Descent looks amazing on the table.
Yeah.
Especially since like those miniatures are amazing. But if you're a miniature gamer, you definitely notice the quality difference. But when you paint them, it just makes it's amazing.
It brings it closer.
Like,
it definitely brings it home. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's such a difference.
So let me ask you this. Let's start with miniature games, since you mentioned you are a passionate miniature gamer. What are other than obviously for miniature gaming, painting's part of the hobby. So I don't know if that counts as blinging out your stuff. That's sort of like just doing what the game is.
It's kind of necessary.
Yeah, but what is
due diligence?
Exactly. But what is something when you get into a miniature game or just extending it? What's the very first thing you would consider extraneous that you do regardless? Like the very first thing you sort of add to your army or to your tools to play with or whatever.
The very first thing I always do is get matching dice. Like matching little D6s for the team that I got.
The dice have to match your army colors. Craig, do you do that?
I totally do.
I know. It's obviously the very first thing. You're like, I can't use any of my hundreds of dice for this. I need to go get new dice for this.
And here's the other thing.
It's the first thing you do, and it's the dumbest thing you do.
Right. Yeah. And I had an orc army for 40K, right? That was all, I mean, their skin was green, but they were all in red. So I had a bunch of red dice, right? And then later I painted a Tau army that was all red. But you can't use the red orc dice with the Tau army.
No. It has to be a slightly different red.
It does, because the orc dice, they'll be cursed if they fight for Tau. So you need a separate dice cube, right, just for the Tau army. That's exactly the right shades.
Yeah,
right? I mean,
it's bad. We actually carry a line of dice called Mighty Dice, and the only reason it exists is because I keep buying dice for myself.
So are you just reselling?
I buy like 2,000. I validate the purchase. I'm like, we're going to buy 2,000 sets of dice, guys, because we need more Mighty Dice. And then I pick like 3 of my favorites out of it.
So these are actually, so you should, so quite frankly, may I give you a bit of marketing advice? So, so this should really, the Mighty Dice page should really say, curated by Lindsey. Hand selected by the Valkyrie of Operations.
Wonder why so many of them are purple?
Right.
It's because I just buy my favorite colors whenever I want to use those dice.
You know those services where they send you clothes in a crate and you're supposed to be, your own personal shopper picks them out for you? That's what this is. This is like hand selected for you by a miniature gamer with your passion level, right?
It is.
And you can have like...
it's certainly not me pretending like I'm making the company money.
Right. It's like it's a loss leader.
Talking about how creatively I'm investing in dice for us.
So Lindsey's scoring a whole set of dice just because it's a new line. You've introduced an entire product line just so you can get free dice. I see how you work.
It's not even like I said, we have a lot of transparency. I'm being super transparent with you now. I just love dice.
Actually, I have to say these dice.
It might also explain why they're all on sale right now.
They're always going to be on sale, I think. I think
it's break even.
Because Lindsey buys a few more dice than necessary.
I buy way more dice than we need. Those dice are always going to be on sale.
That is awesome. I love that. Cool. So dice, the very first thing. What else are miniature games? What's the next thing you're going to buy?
Well, I always like to get one of our products we have a skirmish box, and it's a themed box with a metal plate in the bottom. Mm-hmm. And I put magnets in all of my miniature bases, and then I go to tournaments, and it's like a box, and then all your miniatures just stick to the bottom because I have magnets in the bottom of them. And I have the one I'm most proud of. I got it for Christmas from the guys, and it's my favorite team. My favorite miniature game is Guild Ball. And
good choice.
Good choice.
Yeah, and my favorite team are the Brewers, and they made me a Brewers box.
Oh, wow.
With 2 handles that were beer openers.
Oh, that is awesome.
And it was engraved from all the great quotes about beer, like Franklin saying, like, beer is God's reason that, or proof that God loves us, I think.
Yep. That's the
and all these other, like, great beer-related quotes and Monty Python quotes about alcohol.
That is awesome. Well, that's a good point, and I think it's and it is cool that you guys have the skirmish size boxes, holding like 8 to 10 models for the smaller games. But I do think for sure that is the very first thing as a miniature gamer you do is you buy some way to transport your models, right? Because, but I would echo what you chose to do is we could all buy a very affordable way to transport our models, a cardboard box or with some eggshell in there or whatever.
Toolbox, the old toolbox.
But no, none of us. I mean, I personally, and I Craig, I know you do this as well. I go hunt down the most impressive way to transport that army. You want
to start intimidation right off the bat.
Right? You want to be like, this guy's. It's like the old pool sharks where they're pulling out their personal pool cue and they're screwing it together out of their ivy inlaid box like that. You want to rock into the tournament like that kind of situation. So right, whether it's like some really cool wooden thing from Dogmite or just a really really nice branded case for your game or whatever. As a miniature gamer, I think we all like to have that really nice way to walk into a room and have our models just kind of like.
Oh yeah, and you got to have like the pins and the patches for your team.
the battle history, like all the different tournament prizes stuck on the outside.
Yeah, you gotta have everything. I have my strap, but I have every single pin that I've ever had collected from one of the game stores.
That's a bit of bling. We should talk about that. That's a relatively. It's not that recent anymore. I'd say it's about 5 or 6 years, but relatively recent is the pins, right? Like. Most of the...
I don't think so, Russ. I mean, GW was doing those pins way back when DACA was still a going concern.
I'd forgotten about that. Yeah, but it's a big...
not a huge thing, and it was just like one or two here or there, but they've been around. But you're right that they've exploded over the last few years.
Yeah, they definitely have. I know Magic Wizards of the Coast with Magic the Gathering used to do that as well.
Yeah, they had it for a long time, but...
You could... There was like special missions that you could do during games. Like if you could get a 12-12 creature out or something, you earned like a new pin. And I used to throw games during tournaments just to get those pins. Like I'd be like, this is going to make me lose, but I'm going to pump all this all this power into one guy.
Yeah. Well, the pins are definitely a thing. You're right. They've been around for a long time, but it seems like now.
Oh, there's so many now.
There's so many now. Like Privateer's gone nuts with it, and a lot of folks are doing it now. Weird's got a bunch of them. They're everywhere. That's awesome.
Think we're going to start carrying them as well. So
cool. I'll keep an eye on that.
I'm hoping that they'll come out. Yeah, stop by our booth at Gen Con, and fingers crossed. We'll have pins for you, and if not, we'll have something else that's really cool. So we're also kind of jumping on that bandwagon.
We'll be
we're
there.
Not the first.
Cool. I'll check it out.
We'll probably not be the last, but we're totally doing it.
Oh, it's a good bandwagon to be on.
All right, so pins. I mean, we talked about miniature games. We should probably move on to a different game category. Craig, what do you want to pick next? Should we go RPGs, card games, or board games?
I like blinging out RPGs.
All right, what's the first thing you like to get for your RPG?
Well, I'm fairly new to the whole blinging out the RPG thing, so most of my blinging has been things like at craft stores where I've gotten cool wooden crates that I've sort of like customized with little inserts and stuff, but nothing compared to the stuff that's coming out now from, for instance, Dogmite, wherever the name came from. So looking at the dogmite.com options and the adventure cases and the dragon sheaths and everything, I've done the poor man's version of that. So it looks like it might be time. I like the idea of coming to the game with everything you need in one box. And I kind of do that now, but in a sort of what would the shanty Irish sort of way, if my Irish side can say that without offending. But yeah, I like to bling out with like something that's got my dice in it, and it's got my little partition, so it's got all the different little like maybe cards if I have cards for that role playing game or cards for my character, things like that. And so that I open one box up, and again, you've got that whole pool shark idea where you come to the table, you flip it, and everything you need, and the adventure cases, that looks pretty darn cool.
It's my daughter's loving it.
Yeah,
much
really
cooler
cool.
version of what I do. But
to this day, they're the only item we can't stock.
Oh yeah, they keep blowing out. That's awesome.
It's the one thing we've never caught up on.
Well, I do remember when we got ours. We went there early in Gen Con, and we had a great selection. I remember walking by the booth later. I'm like, wow, good thing we got those early. They were like gone.
Yeah. I'm curious. So I do something really weird when I play RPGs, and I'm curious to see if you guys ever did it or know anyone that does this. So whenever we do RPGs, and maybe it's because I have a culinary background, but I buy like a really fancy cup that I think my character would drink at. So if he's poor, I get like an old wooden cup. And if it's like a vampire kind of, we're doing World of Darkness, I'll get like a super fancy cup. Do you guys ever do anything like that? Do you ever do like food or drink?
I do not, but that sounds like an awesome idea.
That is awesome. We've done a couple things like that. So in our D&D group, all the kids do have goblets that they drink out of.
Oh, that's adorable.
Which is cool. And they all picked them out at Gen Con. They're like different ones shaped like a dragon, and they have all those things. But I remember, God, this is back in the 90s now. We did a Vampire the Masquerade campaign. And I said, I happened to be GMing it, and I said, everybody's got to bring one piece of clothing that highlights their character. And so one guy was kind of doing a cowboy vampire, so he had a cowboy hat on. He was like chewing on a pretzel stick like it was a cigar. So like we've had things like that happen, which I guess is kind of like that. But I have seen, we've had people on the show who've talked about before that they make foods. You know, it's kind of like some people do like Game of Thrones foods night kind of thing. They make foods to reflect where their characters are or the kind of the campaign to set the tone more, which I think is a really cool idea, right? If you're in like a Chinese setting or a Japanese world, like having Japanese food.
I think that totally counts as blinging out your game.
I think it does too. It brings, I mean, the whole point of blinging stuff out, right, is just to add to the ambiance of the game and bring you more into the world, right? So I think food's a great call. I think it's a good idea.
And I love the costume thing. I have some really great stories of costumes gone wrong at our role-playing stories.
Nice.
I can tell you one if you want to hear it.
Yeah, go for it.
It's pretty great. So we were playing Dread, and we were doing the first suggested adventure, which is in this Grand Canyon. And if you've ever seen Will Wheaton's Tabletop, then you've probably seen the adventure run through. And if not, you can definitely go check it out. And everyone came in teenager garb, right?
Right.
Like 1970s teenager garb. And one guy was convinced that he was going to turn into some sort of, I think it's called lycanthrope or like werewolf thing.
Right.
And he's like, I'm going to bring button-down pants so that I can rip my pants off when I turn. And we played through, and the time comes, he's really excited. And he stands up to rip off his pants.
Oh, no.
And they only come halfway off, and he comes crashing into the table and flips the entire table over,
oh my God.
spilling everyone's drinks.
That is hilarious.
And then he just struggles on the ground for a while. It was the worst werewolf I'd ever seen. Just kind of struggled to get his rip-off pants to come fully off, and then stood up, and I guess he just had thought he had put on his shorts. He had just had his boxers on. He had totally forgotten in the excitement of the pants that he had not put anything on underneath other than boxers, and then proceeded to just resume the game in that fashion.
In what
crowd.
In what way? Now, let me. First of all, that's hilarious. I mean, the whole situation. The visual is great. But my question for the guy would be: in what way does sitting down pantsless really reflect the werewolf status of your character?
He just, for whatever reason, like he thought like this was how he interpreted. Like he just was really into it. Because you don't understand. He told us a day beforehand that he was planning this stunt.
It's like,
which was really not. I think stunt was a really strong word for it. It was only really a stunt after he failed so amazingly.
I'm just thinking, like, I mean, is it Breezy in here or am I a werewolf? Right? It's like, it's just.
Yeah, he's like, it's werewolves wear rip-off, like sweatpants. Like,
now that's a good story, Lindsay. But the question really is, when that table was overturned and everybody's drinks went flying, what was your drink in?
Oh,
my drink. It was the 1970s, so I had gotten the ugliest. Like, you remember those old jelly jars that our parents used to collect, and you'd wash them out and then turn them into cups?
Yeah.
And I had one of those old jelly jars with like Tom and Jerry on it.
That's awesome.
Oh, very nice.
It was definitely a flea market find.
I love your idea of every time you play a new character, you find just a drinking thing that matches them. I think that's a really clever, very simple sort of thing to do that evokes your character. I think it's great. I think it's a really good idea.
It's cool. So
that's RPGs. I mean, we could talk about, all of us buy DM screens. I do get sucked into the whole, I fall into the trap of, like, when I'm playing a particular company's RPG, I have a tendency to want all the bling they make, official bling.
Right, all the theme dice and stuff.
I'll be like, oh, we're playing, Horde of the Dragon Queen. I need to get the official Gale Force 9 Horde of the Dragon Queen Dungeon Master screen, even though there's really nothing special on it that's not on the original screen, but it has the artwork, like I get.
Right, it's got one grid on the back.
Right.
You couldn't get anywhere else.
Right. But the artwork, so I get that, but so I fall for that every time. I'm a sucker that way. But what about card games? Lindsay, you mentioned earlier that you were a big Magic player. obviously most card players sleeve their cards, although I know there's different schools of thought on that. But what kind of things do you like to do when you get into a new card game or you get into a card game? What's essential for the blingingness there?
Well, definitely the most exciting thing is sleeving my cards.
Yeah.
Like I just got my favorite card game is Ashes.
Oh, okay, yeah, good choice.
And I just found Guardians of the Galaxy tape deck card sleeves.
Ooh,
so
neat.
it looks like the card sleeves look like the awesome tape from the movie,
Right.
and then the box, the deck box looks like a cassette player.
Oh, that's awesome.
So that's my most exciting find recently, and I put my favorite. I don't really theme it towards the game. I just kind of use my favorite card sleeves for my favorite games.
Now, do you get into
probably the counters?
Oh, the counter. Okay, I was going to ask
Like
about the
light
mat.
counter would be the only other thing I really splurge on.
Now, do you like the mats, like the whole neoprene mat situation for card games?
Oh yeah, I don't know how I forgot about that. I totally love mats. I have like 1,000 mats.
See, now here's the thing. Now here's what I obsess about, and this is something I really don't understand why. It seems like most of the companies do this. So for me, I like art on the mats, but I love, and I don't know what it is about me that likes this. I love the mats that have the little indicators on them for where the various, cards should be placed during gameplay. Like here's the row for the market, or here's the row for
The left
your
hand,
discard
the
deck,
right
the right
hand.
disc. I don't know why. It's the OCD in me. I like everything to have a place, and if it's indicated, it's even better. So but the funny thing is, like, most card games only like the tutorial pamphlet has that on it, right? And then the professional gamer mat has no indicators on it because the pro player knows where to put all the cards. But I'm like, no, I want the pro mat to have all the little things on it in some kind of cool artsy fashion. Am I weird that way, or is that a thing?
I don't think so. I know, like, at least out there where they're playing, they have all the Game of Thrones card mats, and there's a spot for everything.
Oh, see, I like that already.
It's pretty rare, but I love it when I can actually find those.
Yeah, because I do think it helps you teach a new player too, but also I just think it's neat to everything have its little spot.
I think one of my favorite things to do is, like, because I'm a girl gamer, right?
Right.
And there's not a ton of us girl gamers, at least that I've seen. Like, there's more and more every year, which is amazing. But for a long time, like, there was like 2 of us out of the batch or 3 of us at a tournament, and that was a lot. So when you're a girl gamer, you can really kind of mess with people. So I would show up with, like, it would be like decks card sleeves that had a kitten on it, like a really adorable kitten, and it would say like freedom. And I would roll out a mat with like a unicorn, and I would have like the most, like, the obnoxiously things. Things that, like, I only love because they're so bad. And I would roll up to like these really hardcore tournaments, and I would like lay out my stuff, and I would just sit there and stare at the guy across from me, and he would look so uncomfortable. So I'm like putting all like these pink things out in front of him and stuff, and then I would, not always, but it felt really good to like destroy him in a card game at a tournament with my Freedom Kitten cards.
You should know you just lost a Hello Kitty. So what's the?
Yeah.
I love that. So I love the meta of this already. So you're using the fact that you're in a minority gender in this situation, going, all right, I'm just going to mess with people's heads. So like, was that kind of the thinking? Like, I'm just going to. Are you passionate about kittens, or you like really? I just want to kind of throw my opponent off and have them underestimate me.
I think I'm passionate about, because when I was younger, when I was playing card games, this is going to get a little like darker and deeper.
It's all right.
Since we're going to hit in this topic. But when I was playing card games, especially Magic, and I've actually quit Magic because of the environment that I've encountered there over and over again, which is super unfortunate because it's such a massive part of who I am as a person.
Yeah.
But there is a pushback against some females and being a girl gamer, and you do feel uncomfortable when you're the only one there a lot of times. And I've had a lot of tournaments where guys have treated me differently or not talked to me because I wasn't really one of them. And when I was younger, I really tried to hide the fact that I was a girl because I was kind of embarrassed about it, because I was a girl that liked all these things. And as I got older, I really found enjoyment in embracing kind of like who I was. And I was never super into kittens, but like I love pink. It's my favorite color.
Sure.
And I do really like girly things on top of all these other games. And as I grew into an older teenager, I got tired of hiding that and having like the really hardcore like black mat and everything. And I started picking out my favorite colors, and I kind of, in sort of a celebration of just being like, I just don't care anymore. Like, I'm going to be who I am, and I'm going to show up anyway and enjoy myself. I kind of got into this meta of being like, how far can I push the girl thing? Like, can I find Hello Kitty card sleeves? Because I want to be that like, I don't want to hide who I am anymore when I go to these tournaments.
That's awesome. Oh, I think first of all, it's awesome that you just decided, wanted to embrace who you are and be who you are. I think that's really important, but I think it's also awesome that you were kind of trailblazing in some of those areas and just kind of saying, look, I'm a woman and I like to play games and I'm here to play. Right. And I think it's great. I think I do think it's awesome
great,
that
but
you
at
did.
the same time, it's so unfortunate.
Well, it's unfortunate about the environment you had to deal with. I mean, that sucks.
It is. And it's definitely getting better. I see more girls playing Magic now, and I kind of want to get back into it. But for a while there, it was a little toxic.
No,
and I think the industry has done such a great job of starting the conversation, starting to turn it around. But definitely, if you're a girl gamer, like, just do whatever you want. Like, the guys will look so uncomfortable. You'll learn to love it, and you'll throw them off their game, which is even better. And nothing makes me happier than seeing, like, a little girl roll up with, like, an adorable deck box and sit down across from a guy with, like, heavy metal dragon stuff, and them both having a really great time.
Yeah. One of my favorite things to see, because I do like that, and there's definitely a lot of work to do still, but I do like that some of those walls are coming down. Like, I remember a couple years ago at Gen Con when the My Little Pony card game came out, right? So my girls, they're a little older now, they're 14 and 13, but when they were younger, huge My Little Pony fans. So we went to play, and what I was surprised about was, it was mostly female gamers playing. Trying out, it was it wasn't even released yet. You can play it, you can sit down and see the game and see all the cool art and everything. But how many guys were there getting into it? And it was just like, I thought it was kind of good to see the guys kind of like, I'll try this game out, even though it's obviously geared towards primarily females. But it was great to see that. So I hopefully those walls are starting to break down. I know there's a lot of work to do, but I'm glad that you were out there just saying, no, this is who I am and I'm here to play games. That's awesome.
Yeah, no, for sure. The walls are breaking down. And even with, like, the My Little Pony RPG that's been coming out and stuff, everyone is getting more comfortable. The industry is definitely getting more diverse.
Yeah.
We have a long way to go still, but we've come miles, and it's so awesome to see, all these different people sit down at a table together. And it's one of the things I think makes our industry super unique. It's one of the reasons why, like, Dogmite, we support every other game company out there.
Mm-hmm.
And technically we are competitors, but we also work together a lot. And I see that in the industry all the time. Like, I'll go to a con and there'll be 5 different people from 5 different companies that are all in direct competition, trying out a new game and loving it.
Right.
And it's something super special about our industry, and it's amazing.
You definitely see that, and we've learned that on the show, having the opportunity to talk to so many different game designers like yourself and people in the industry, and you realize how small the industry is and how many people, again, like yourself, who have been designers for different companies, right? So it's really hard to be too competitive because now you're competing against the company who still has the IP for the game you help them design, right? So it's kind of like...
Right, yeah, and it's like going to have expansions, and it's like all your friends, and we're gamers. All we want is more good games.
Right, exactly.
Like, I don't care who makes it. Just give me more games.
So I have to ask this. So what is the... we haven't talked about board game Bling much, but what is the craziest or most crazy piece of Bling you have for any of your games? Any pick a cat with board game, card game, RPG, miniature game, whatever. What's the one craziest thing you have blinged out?
All right, you have to give me a moment to just brainstorm. You guys threw me off guard here.
All right, I'm throwing a curveball.
We did take a quick turn.
I'll tell you what.
Give her a moment. Russ, why don't you answer your own question?
I have one.
You go first, and I'll be right back.
Well, I have to say this because I did just get this over the weekend, and I have to share this thing with you because it is stupid. I mean, I'm here to tell you right now, there is no reason for this to exist, and yet I have one. So basically, there was a recent Kickstarter from Privateer Press, which longtime listeners know I'm pretty much a fanboy over there. So, and also people know I'm a big fan of Undercity, the board game they came out with quite a few years ago, which is a co-op sort of dungeon crawler set in the Iron Kingdoms, right? So about a year ago now, they had a Kickstarter for Widow's Wood, which was the sort of the Hordes version of Undercity. So it's a new board game they launched. It's essentially the same mechanics as Undercity, co-op dungeon crawler. I'm using air quotes, but now it's a co-op sort of forest crawler where you're out in the woods in the Iron Kingdoms and you're playing, hordes-like creatures and you're fighting more hordes-like creatures. So instead of, fighting war machine type stuff. So anyway, as part of this Kickstarter, the highest level which I was totally suckered into, was you could buy the highest level of this Kickstarter, and it comes with a giant, real, honest-to-God wooden treasure chest. Okay? So the size of a treasure chest. So imagine if we're in a real dungeon and you saw an actual treasure chest. So that big. And the treasure chest, again, wood, locks, leather handles, the whole bit. Then inside the treasure chest, it comes with basically laser-cut wood, a la Broken Token, like that kind of thing, that you then assemble into various trays and containers that can hold all the stuff in Widow's Wood, all the Kickstarter expansions and stretch goal stuff, and all the stuff from Undercity can get entirely in this thing. So I have this thing now in the corner of my room. It looks like something I bought at a flea market, like a really cool wooden treasure chest. And then you open it up, and there's all these trays full of stuff. It's a little over the top. It's funny because I'm showing my daughter this. I'm like, look at this cool treasure chest. I can carry everything at once. And she's like, Dad, that is in no way portable. It's like this and I'm like, you're right, but look how cool it is. So I do have this giant treasure chest. I don't think it actually makes the game more portable in any way, but it is the craziest piece of game bling that I own.
That's pretty good.
And it is pretty crazy.
Craig, do you have anything like that? Well, Lindsay thinks so one. Do you have anything that crazy or in the crazy zone?
The craziest thing I have done yet would probably be the Battle Foam RPG, also Privateer Press, but I use it for other games. The RPG Messenger Bag.
Oh yes.
Which I paid full price for, I might say. Which includes.
I don't think I know that.
It's cool.
I have one too. I use it all the time.
It's got space for your laptop if you are high tech like Russ. Other space for your giant rule books, which is more my speed. But it also comes with its own little pocket with foam.
Yeah, for miniatures.
You could probably fit. Well, actually, I know because it's the same size as the Mini, which carries all of my Chaos Ball mercenary star player models in it. So that's probably like 15 models.
Yeah, I use that all the time.
When I RPG it, I just carry my Mini in there, and then maybe one or two others for folks that I know don't have minis. But it has enough space for a nice little collection of minis as well.
Yeah, that messenger bag is fantastic. I use it all the time too, and and as I mentioned, I DM my family's game, and sometimes we'll play at my brother's house, and it's exactly perfect for that. I happen to have all the models for the party, so they all fit right in there. I get all my books in there, my screens, my tablet or laptop, and everything I need to play in one little messenger bag, and it's pretty slick. So that's a great one.
Yeah, so that sounds
amazing.
My big bling.
So Lindsay, have you got one?
All right,
I
Lindsay,
do have one. You have to tell me if this counts, because it kind of makes me sound a little creepy.
No, creepy's
but
good.
I guess we're going to put it all out there.
Yeah, go for it.
So I'm super into solo games.
Okay.
And I really like Robinson Crusoe and the Cursed Island, and my favorite is Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective. And you have to keep this in mind while I tell the story, that no one else was coming and that no one else was here for this whole experience.
Okay.
But I poured myself brandy, because that's what they drink the most in the book. Right. I actually went and bought a really crappy violin. Didn't play it, just put it out there. No one's home. It doesn't matter. There's just a violin I dropped $20 on that doesn't work, that I just wanted to play with that night, in the environment. I lit all these candles, and I made Sherlock Holmes themed, English themed snacks. And I totally decked out. I put a red blanket over the chair to make it look more like a red armchair.
Nice.
And I tried to find a pipe, but I couldn't find a pipe, and I felt weird paying for something that I don't like smoking, so I felt weird,
right,
paying towards smoking. So I didn't do that, but I went all out. I decked out my entire room to look like Sherlock Holmes, and then I sat down and played the new adventures of Consulting Detective. But I feel a little weird saying it, just because I did it with the expectation that no one but me was ever going to see it or experience it.
That's really...
And I still have the violin. It's in my closet.
Wow.
I get it out when I play Consulting Detective.
That's actually really cool. So I think that's kind of I don't know. I for some reason that's really cool. But I feel like all of us do things like that, right? My wife will you set up for a nice big bath and you kind of get everything relaxed. You get the right music on, you pour yourself a glass of wine or something, and you just relax. like something like that. Or sometimes when I'm playing video games, I'll set the room up just right with everything set up just perfect. And so I think that's really cool. I think it's just a way to it's kind of cathartic. I think that's really neat.
Yeah, I love doing like the food and stuff, and I probably more bling my games out in that way.
Yep.
Than the traditional way. And like my game groups know. One time I served them mealworms and they didn't know we were playing that Robinson Crusoe game, Icarus Island. And I made curried bacon, cashews, and mealworms, but I told them it was just cashews. And like halfway through the game, they realized they had been eating bugs. And then I tried to argue. They got upset. I don't understand why they got upset. But then I tried to tell them, like, you're on an island. Of course you're eating mealworms. Like, what's wrong with you? I thought you wanted this to be thematic.
Wow. That is awesome.
I don't know if I can get behind that.
That is awesome. I love that.
That's
I love
hardcore.
your commitment. I love your team. That's fantastic.
They didn't notice. They took them a while to notice, so I like to think that it was delicious.
Did anybody be like, they're eating the cashews?
How long did it take before they went back to the table with you?
Before they ate things I served for them? About 3 game nights. They got really hungry because I like to cook for them. So eventually their hunger cracked them and they started eating again. But there was a lot of threatening that night.
Well, see, I think this is a pretty brilliant play because not only does it do the theming, but you've been talking all episode here about how everybody at Dogmite is bringing you food, and they're not asking you to bring them food. So you establish this reputation of like, you really don't want me to be cooking the food here, gentlemen. So
Lindsey. Lindsey.
That's well played.
Lindsey, have you looked carefully at the coffee they've been bringing you?
No, I haven't. I've just been drinking every cup.
Oh, they may have just played like a fray. Oh, that's bad.
And they're in Game of Thrones mode.
I didn't even think of that.
Oh, man.
It's so funny.
Yeah. You might want to check on that.
Yeah.
What's worse than finding a worm in your apple?
Yes.
Finding half a worm.
It'll be from now on called the Frey Beverage Incident for those who've seen
I know. Well, it'd be hard for them to get me. I went to culinary school, and one of the things in culinary school they do first is break your gag reflex.
Yeah.
So they make you eat everything that you don't want to eat until you just don't care anymore. So it'd be pretty impressive if they found things that I actually just didn't.
Nice.
Was like, okay, sure, I'll eat this.
Nice. That's awesome.
That sounds more like hazing than training.
Culinary school is just a series of hazing.
There's a whole
should know that before they sign up.
This is something else I didn't know about you, Lindsey. We could have done a whole segment on gaming foods now because you're a culinary. We got to have Lindsey back on, Craig, because there's so many topics we'd be talking about.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. So, Lindsey, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us here on the show. We really appreciate it.
And your vacation.
And not being able to watch the obviously passionately played Game of Thrones tournament happening in the next room next door.
No, they've gotten so silent, and I'm worried if they might have just all killed each other like in real life.
You're right in the middle of the red vacation.
Who's going to
play? They must be down to like the finals or something because all the arguing has just gotten super quiet.
It's going to be awkward. You're going to have a lot of wood to sand tomorrow if they're not doing it. That's going to be a thing.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think the loser has to clean the Dogmite toilets tomorrow.
There you go. So, Lindsey, if folks want to find out more about you or Dogmite or what you guys are up to, where should they go on the internet to find out more?
You can. Our website would definitely be the best place. It has all of our bios and stuff on it. It has a contact information page, so it's easy to just reach out to us, and we love people that just say hi. And then we have on the Component Collector, the Kickstarter is a really strong community. They're super active. There's lots of comments. They've enjoyed talking to each other way past the close of the Kickstarter, which is a first for us and really cool. And they've been begging us for a forum or some way that they can hang out, without the Kickstarter, because the Kickstarter is a little difficult. So we're going to look into setting up forums for everyone, especially with the games coming out that people can hang out on. So keep an eye out for that. But for now, the Component Collector Kickstarter is really active, and the Contact Us will always reach out. I think we're going to start doing like more live casts and possibly doing a podcast here if we can get our act together. So,
well, very nice.
Oh, cool.
Well, great. Of course, that's all over at dogmite.com, right? That's all there. Well, awesome. Well, thanks again, Lindsey. We loved having you on the show, and we hope we can have you on again in the future. Maybe we can talk about other ways to sneak in unexpected foods into game night.
Yep.
Oh, God.
If you guys can think of it, I've probably tried it.
Oh, nice.
This edition of Did You Ever Notice is brought to you by all of our friends at Patreon, the men and the women, the boys and the girls who help us keep the lights on day after day, week after week, month after month, episode after episode. You hear their names, you see them in all their glory, and without them, this show would not happen. Let me emphasize that. Without these people helping us and becoming part of our show and part of our culture and reaching out, this show would not happen. Now, this is the first segment where I'm recycling back through the beginning of the Patreon report. And so there'll be some new faces, and some old ones will have disappeared, and you probably won't even notice. But you will notice if it's your name, so that's good. And I have managed again now this time to find an alphabetized list by last name, so it'll shake things up a little bit. And today I would like to thank Arvid Asma, Todd Alstrom, Heng Ik Yong, Mahmoud Al-Mahmoud, and Bill Alexander. So thank you guys, and thank everybody who has taken the time to view our crazy little video and taken the opportunity to become part of the show. We really do appreciate it, and without you, quite literally, we would have been done long ago. So thank you guys for stepping up and helping us out. Did you ever notice how much time and effort can be spent on chasing things you're never actually going to be able to get much enjoyment out of? I mean, I think that's a human truism, but in gaming in particular, and really focused on miniatures gaming, I mean, constantly trying to build armies that are never going to get painted, that might never even see the table. That is an issue that I deal with all the time with all of my games. Russ and I play Rune Wars for a few months, and I have a big Waykar's Legion force. But every time I played, I had things that were missing from my collection that I wanted to field. So I went online and I got more skeleton warriors, and I got more skeleton archers, and then we were moving on to the next thing, and they are still in boxes, and I have not painted them, put them together, or more importantly, for this particular thought that I'm sharing with you tonight, played them. So that, like I said, that happens with every game. I have units for pretty much every army, for every system that I collect, that are doomed never to see the light of day. And the thing is, you play, and sometimes you play for a few weeks, sometimes you play for a few months, sometimes you can even play for a few years. And the thing about miniatures gaming that no other kind of game or gamer really shares this aspect is that you have this ability to fine-tune your collection. And there are things that are constantly coming. I mean, I guess for a board game or for any kind of gamer, I guess expansions maybe. I mean, I never end up using most of the expansions, especially Kickstarter expansions and things like that. But for miniatures gamers, I feel like it's different. And it's really come home to me over this last month or so with Warhammer 40,000 8th edition, because I've never been into a game system as much as I was into Warhammer 40,000. Even Warhammer Fantasy was sort of like a sideline to me. And give you an idea, that sideline spawned 3 different very, very large armies. I had Tomb Kings that I actually have taken to tournaments. I had Dark Elves that never really amounted to much. I just really loved the concept. I had Dark Eldar in 40K, so I wanted to have Dark Elves in Fantasy. Duh. And I had multiple army deals. And I don't think I've ever really completed any kind of force. I mean, I put together stuff and got a couple colors on there so I could do some campaigns. In fact, I believe the Low Jog campaign that I did with the guys here in the pub years ago, and I still have the map. What's it called? It's called... Oh, I just took it down off the wall. I'll probably never get it back again. Grimfast Vale. I think I used my Dark Elves in that. And that was definitely the last time I played Warhammer Fantasy with any structure. But I had that big, huge, and then I had a Chaos army that I loved, that I put together, that I actually put together over 2 different sort of phases of my collecting career. And I have units for that you play, and you go, oh, I wish I had that unit in this particular moment, so you go get that unit, but you never play it again. So, and that was my sideline. So for Warhammer 40,000, I have easily collected more armies than I have ever collected for any other game system ever, bar none. I mean, to an insane degree. If I had to try to, off the top of my head, because I did not prepare for this part, I would say that in college, my first collection in Rogue Trader days, mind you, was Space Marines, of course, with RT-01, Rogue Trader 1, the Beaky Marine, the first plastic kit. And the Rhinos, I bought the Rhinos when they were 3 to a box, and I bought the Land Raiders when they were 2 to a box. And so I had them. I had Squats. I had Tyranids. I had Imperial Guard. I think that was it for those for that era. And then from there, I built up and did Dark Eldar when they came out. Excuse me. And then I did, when I worked for Warhammer 40,000, I did Chaos. And my Chaos army was specifically for a Play the Staff tournament. So we got a really good deal on buying bits and pieces. And it was a complete Khornate Chaos biker army that every model was converted, including a possessed Land Raider, 3 possessed Predators. I think I had 4 8-man biker squads and an 8-man chosen biker squad, and every one of those models was converted. Every one of my Dark Eldar models was converted, and that was back when they were the old ugly first edition Dark Eldar. And then I, with the whole new version of the Imperial Guard, I have my Iron Legion, or Steel Legion, I think it's called. And so so it's just over. But then I got my Space Wolves. Then I got Grey Knights. And so then Lost in the Damned. My Lost in the Damned army, which had all of its Imperial Guard units, were actually dressed in prison orange jumpsuits. And so I mean, it's crazy. And the thing is, I love these models are crazy. I love modeling. I love putting everything together. I love painting, but I would get all excited on that side, and then this stuff wouldn't see the table, because then I would be on to the next army. Nowadays, you're on to the next game, right? But back then, it was just as bad, as I would collect a bunch of models and then get bored with that army and go on to the next army. Even though we were playing Warhammer 40,000 for years and years on end without really playing anything else other than some specialist games here or there, and then a league season of fantasy every now and then to break things up. It was all Warhammer 40,000. And so I would just bounce from army to army to army. So here comes 8th edition. And I'm very excited all of a sudden. And I went in with, I don't know. I don't think I'm going to like it. I'm not going to buy anything new. And I liked it. I liked it a lot. I still went in with the concept, you know what? Right now, I have my Dark Eldar, which are still upstairs in the attic, but they are ugly as sin now because the new models are so beautiful. And the army has changed so much with so many different units that didn't exist when I did Dark Eldar, that for me to try to make a Dark Eldar army out of what I own would be ridiculous, and it would be ugly. So that's still up in the attic. But I dug out all my Space Wolves, and I dug out all of my all my Imperial Guard, which actually was my kind of go-to army for years and years and years, so that wasn't very hard to dig out. And then, of course, with the Dark Imperium set, I got all those Death Guard, and I thought, oh, these are beautiful models. I'm going to start a new army. I'm going to start these. So, but I'm not going to buy anything else for the time being. So I had a lot of projects from the good old days that I hadn't finished. So what I did when I found myself going insane, and I was going on eBay, and it was craziness, and I'm like, I'm not going to do this. So what I have recently done is I talked about this in achievements. I decided I was going to kind of categorize things because I wasn't getting anything done. My efforts were all scattered. So I decided, you know what? I had the most units sort of half done, semi-done, or in the concept stages for the Imperial Guard, and I needed the most units to make my old Imperial Guard more diverse and more interesting because my Imperial Guard was really straightforward Steel Legion all the way. I have 9 10-man squads all in the metal. I had a bunch of tanks. I had enough chimeras I had 5 chimeras all painted up in the same scheme, 3 tanks, the whole 9 yards. I had some sentinels. I had the starter box, and then I had exploded out from there. But I didn't have any Inquisition troops. I didn't have any ecclesiarchy troops, and so I wanted to do that. So I decided, okay, I have these Crusaders. I have these henchmen, ideas, concepts, and bits floating around, so I decided I was going to work on that. So I've just worked on that, and I've just finished that along with the Valkyrie that I had laying around, and on top of that, I was like, oh, I love that Hellhound model, so I went and chased down that Hellhound model on eBay. So now I'm in the process, so I did that. So I've got, I think 2 or 3 models that sort of floated to the surface of my collection after I had finished painting those that I want to kind of round that out, but that leaves really no other Imperial Guard units that I really want for that army. That's a lie. I just bought some Ratlings and some Ogren on eBay. But anyway, so that's wave 2. So now I'm working on the Death Guard. I thought the Death Guard have by far the most to do, but they were also the most interesting to me because most of them are brand new. So I did get myself a Forge World Great Unclean one because it's just a beautiful model. And I've got 2 Dark Imperium sets. I've already painted one up to a really nice standard. I'm going to paint the other one up. I went and got the Snap Fit Death Guard, and Snap Fit Poxwalkers boxes just so I would have a little more variety. Then, so what I've done this week is I converted all of my second box of Dark Imperium so that I would have the different models with different profiles. They would look different on the battlefield. They would have different weapons and a ton of Poxwalkers. And I created Typhus out of my second Lord of Contagion with a bunch of Tyranid bits I had laying around. But now in my head I'm thinking, well, I could do this whole summoning thing with the Great Unclean one, but that's really iffy, right? I mean, I need to roll on 3d6. I need to roll a 12 or higher to get him on, and if I can't do that in the first 3 rounds of the matched play games that I play, then that's 250 points that's just dead and doesn't count and will never show up on the board. So I'm like, well, the way summoning works, I kind of want to have some depth of demons, so now I'm like, oh, I'll start collecting Nurgle Demons box. Oh, but then I need more Nurglings so that so that's ugly. So I've so far fought that off. I don't know how long I'm going to be able to fight that off. And then after that, I will have some extra units to add to my Space Wolf army, mainly characters, because my characters were a little thin. I also had some Thunderwolf, some proxy models from Russia, if you want to believe that, from before they actually made Thunderwolf models, when they first showed up in a codex with no models. So I never even put those together. So I put all those together. I will paint those up. I got some characters. Again, I got some really nice characters that I'm going to do, and I got some Wolfen because I've never had Wolfen before, so I wanted to paint them up. But that's after I'm done with the Nurglings. The key is, though, I've got all this work to do now, and it's exciting because it's all regimented, but none of this is going to ever see the light of day. Not none of it, but a great deal of it is probably never going to get used. And that's when I fall back on this realization that I made with you guys in Did You Ever Notice many, many moons ago, that I'm doing this in large part because I love painting and I love putting these together and I love customizing them. And really, there's never been any other game that has quite hit that sweet spot for me as 40K. So there I'm in the middle of this massive new hobby splash, and I just talked your ears off for way longer than necessary. But if you're coming from where I'm coming from, you know what I'm talking about. And if you don't, if you're a board gamer going, what is all this talk of? It's this. You're always it's like chasing the dragon. And if you play fantasy, it literally could be chasing a dragon. But it's always trying to get that new unit out there, or trying to get that new thing that you want to try to field, even though part of you knows you'll never field it. it's this beautiful thing to have that whole army that you could put on a table if you wanted to. And that's about all I've got to say about that for tonight. So thanks for listening, and good night.
Achievement unlocked! You've made it to the end of another D6 Generation episode, the podcast whose humor has universally been acclaimed as not too horrible. Please let us know what you thought of the show by either emailing us at info@the d6generation.com or by posting in our official D6G episode thread at the top of the DACA Discussions Forum on DACA.com. If for some inexplicable reason you actually enjoyed this show, you can help others find out about it by leaving positive reviews on iTunes. See you in 2 weeks. Thanks for listening, and happy gaming.
The theme from Total Fangirl comes from the soundtrack of The Last Night on Earth, the zombie game, courtesy of Flying Frog Productions, and is a composition of Mary Beth Magalanes.
Could I talk a little bit? I am looking at the A Song of Ice and Fire miniatures game by Simon, and I'm in danger of jumping onto my second Kickstarter of the year.
Wow. See, that's not, that's a little interesting.
Yeah.
So why do you think that is an attractive option for you, sir?
Well, I will tell you, it looks like it plays very much like the Rune Wars game.
Okay. Well, we already have Rune Wars. But okay.
Without the cards, without the dials.
Right.
It's like a cross between the Rune Wars game. It's like if the Rune Wars game went a little too far with its gimmicks.
Okay.
And someone dialed it back. That would be this game, in my opinion, with some traditional things replacing things like the dials. So it's alternating activations instead of the dials, for instance. But it has this really cool political component to it called the non-combat board, the tactics board, which gives you characters like Cersei and Tyrion, and actually puts them into the game in a way that affects the battlefield, but from a distance.
Feels like the War Council in the original Battle Lore. Remember that thing on the side where you could...
it's kind of a little bit like that. So I mean, Rodney did a great Watch It Played that I watched.
See, you've been sucked
today.
in by Rodney. That's the risk.
Well, no, because I was already looking at them. I mean, first of all, the miniatures are actually by Dark Sword.
Okay.
Or actually, if you listen carefully to all the press, the miniatures are not done by Dark Sword. They are approved by Dark Sword. So I don't know exactly what that means.
Okay. Hey, Lindsay.
Hey, what's up?
How you doing?
I'm doing well. Sorry, you guys caught me. I dozed off there for a second.
Oh, sorry. We didn't mean to wake you up. Did we wake you?
Like, what? Oh.
Did we wake you up? Because that's we apologize. You know.
No, it's fine. I was sitting here thinking about Gen Con and all the stuff that needs to happen for Gen Con, and then I must have just zoned out completely waiting for you guys to call.
No, it's all right. We got distracted. We apologize. Craig and I, Craig is being sucked into the Cool Mini or Not Kickstarter for the Game of Thrones miniature game. And I'm trying to talk him off the ledge, but unsuccessfully doing so. Pretty much what's happening.
Oh, I pledged for that this morning.
See? Look, boom.
See? Yeah.
Oh.
And I'm going to go out on a limb and say Russ was not trying to the closest you got to even trying to talk me out of it was, so why is this calling to you?
No.
It sounded to me more like an invitation to sell you on it.
Well, okay. Yes, it was. I'm trying not to type in Kickstarter.com right now.
No, you'll look at it later because of Rodney's video, and then you'll be like, oh my God, I need it.
See, this is the problem with these crazy podcasts.
Is that the game or is that Rodney? Because Rodney's really good.
He is.
Rodney's
That's what I was saying.
He's got the Jedi mind tricks almost as much as Russ.
Rodney's like a crack dealer over there. You can't be watching that stuff. That's ridiculous.
No. Well, I usually avoid him just specifically because of that. But I was already caught by the Game of Thrones theme and the quality of the minis.
Now, we already had the Game of Thrones Battle Lore version, which kind of tuckered out. So this is not that mistake.
That's my problem. That is what's halting me right now is because I have that on my game shelf, all painted and ready to go, and haven't played it in 5 years. So
you have it all painted?
Yeah.
Wow, good job.
Yeah, I go through these phases. Thank you. not saying it's a positive.
It's one of the ways you can tell the game's about to die out is when Craig finishes the last model in his army. For the game.
Or if I spend a fortune on terrain.
Right. That's when interest just plummets. That's the moment that we find the new shiny thing and move on.
Exactly.
Right.
There's so many now.
I know.
I honestly don't know how it's going to be. I mean, we might want to say this for the podcast, but it's interesting. It's really vanilla compared to most of the miniature games I play now.
That's the thing. Everybody's got a hook.
So. It is
Everybody's got a hook, and
simplistic,
there's not a hook there. Yeah, so I don't know. We'll see.
Oh, I think the hook is that tactics board with the civilians.
Yeah, I think the hook is Game of Thrones, but that can
I think the hook is.
I mean, beyond that, I'm saying.
Well, how do the models?
That's definitely the major.
Are the models appealing?
Gorgeous.
Okay, see, that's the problem because Simon does a great job with their models.
They're being they're being painted by like phenomenal world-class painters. They're not being
they're not painting the ones that we're gonna get. They're gonna paint the original resin or 3D printed stuff.
Man, I think there's a whole lost chapter just on Game of Thrones cool miniature. Well, anyway, we should probably move on to actual show content.